Is everybody ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our August 15th, 2022 open meeting of the Select Board. We are back into regular session, and please stand with me and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is anyone in the audience for public comment?
Limpert, 43 Stone Cleave Road. This might have been more appropriate as public comment at the end of the meeting, but since we only have public comment at the beginning of the meeting, I'll take my time. I just wanted to, hopefully this isn't premature, but I wanted to say how honored I've been to serve with Chris Nobley on the school committee in the time we spent together. It was a great experience. We had a really good 3 years, and I think we got things started off in a different direction, and I was really appreciative of that time we were able to spend together. As you all recall, that was kind of a tough financial time for our town. And I don't know if you also recall that Chris personally went out and raised $40,000 for athletic fees for students who might not otherwise be able to afford them. He did that pretty much on his own. He got businesses to buy banners that we put on, the overpass over the highway, and he really did a wonderful job to try to help get us through that tough time. And so that was one thing we really need to thank him for. The other thing that I recall as I was thinking about this is Chris and our other Chris Allen, who was also on the school committee at the time, were kind of out in front of trying to get us in the GIC. They were strong advocates and went to a number of meetings with our then town manager and other people to try to really push for getting us in the GIC, thinking that if our town saved money, it would be more money we'd all have to be able to spend on public safety, services, and schools. And maybe you planted the seed to get that process done when the time was right. I can't say as much about your service here on the Select Board. I can only say that I appreciate everything you've done. You've always seemed to be the voice of reason here, trying to find kind of a middle ground when that was necessary. And the one thing I've always appreciated about you, Chris, is you've always tried to think about, as we would say, the customer, the constituents. What's in it for the constituents? Are we thinking about the constituents? So I really appreciate everything you've done. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Stan. Any other public comment?
Good evening. Gerald Brecker, 488 Pleasant Street. Since the issue has now been raised, I think it's also important to talk about what comes next. I think it's not necessary to go into a lot of detail about how this vacancy could have and perhaps should have arisen quite a while ago, since the vacancy is created by somebody whose foot has been out the door for a long time, and as I recall, because I was in the room when the question was asked about it, refused to address the question when it was straightforward and addressed to the member of this board. I don't know why it was impossible for the member not to address the question at the time, but I guess the heart has its reasons. In the same way, I might add that other members of the board can't answer straight questions about why certain appointments to town boards weren't made or not made. I mean, I saw that on the video, and I was embarrassed at the inability of one of the members being addressed by a different member to just give a straight answer. Why wasn't so-and-so reappointed? There was a lot of tap dancing, there was a lot of evasion, but there was no straight answer. And again, the question is, why not? So I think what this raises is whether it's in the best interest of the town, and I've read the town manager's memo on this, on filling this vacancy, whether it really is in the best interest of the town for this board to fill the vacancy. I don't think the board has the full confidence of the town. I think the results of town meeting of the last several years, every time there's been an issue of consequence and controversy within the town, the board comes down on one side and gets outvoted by town meeting consistently, time after time after time. So I don't think that there's the full confidence of the town in the board, and therefore, I think it would be better for the town to be allowed to elect its next member. I understand about the administrative complications that might arise and the small amount of money. I was pleased to see that it was only $16,500, which I think the town can afford, to run a special election at the time of the general elections in November, which is perhaps when all town elections ought to be held, and not in some obscure time in March when people aren't paying attention. That way, we would get more participation and more democratic process in the town. The more people that vote, the better off we all are. So as a citizen of the town, I'm grateful for Mr. Nobley's service. I think that anyone who volunteers to not only sit on boards but to run for office in this town is to be congratulated for the effort. And whether we agree with their decisions as a member of the board, that's irrelevant on that. So I want to echo what Stan just said. But having said that, the people should decide the next member of this board. And there is a process by which, regardless of what other decisions are made, that could happen. And I would say that it's likely that the people will be heard on that. And I think that the board and the town manager ought to just get behind that now instead of, once again, being on the wrong side of that issue in a few weeks. Thank you very much.
Is there any other public comment? Okay. Moving on to our governmental reports, we'd first like to hear an update from National Grid.
Good evening. My name is Shamat Kamal. I'm from National Grid. So just a quick update about the outages and the claim forms that came in. We still have 4 that have come in. We've paid off 3. There's 1 that we're still waiting for a little bit more information so we can pay them off. Other than that, just to let you know, I've personally walked High Street up and down. I've given out claim forms. I've spoken to some of the store managers, some of the owners, just to see if they needed help with the claim process, and it seemed like everyone either had put in a claim form or they said that they would look into it. So that is my quick update, unless you have a question.
No, other than that, I think we're all very grateful that you've literally walked up and down the street to make sure that you're
Yeah, absolutely.
get as many people that might be eligible.
Yep.
So thank you
Yep,
for that.
Absolutely.
And then you get to see a few of our very nice restaurants
I
and
did.
shops. And,
I did.
and maybe you sat down and had a little something to drink on your trip. No, so.
I was on work, so I couldn't, but I will go back there with my group, but yes. So hopefully we'll have a couple other claim forms come through, and we'll be able to pay them off, and hopefully our customers will be a little bit more pleased with us.
Thank you for your attention, yeah.
Thank you for getting that
absolutely.
done and getting it done in a timely manner. I know I've spoken to a couple businesses that were very happy.
Oh,
with-
perfect.
With the results.
Absolutely.
And, so very satisfied, so
Thank you.
And thank you for continuing the work with the businesses who are still
Oh, you're very
working
welcome.
on it.
Just don't let it happen again.
No. We will definitely make sure that doesn't happen.
Be able to identify what the miscommunication was?
It was in our GIS system. We didn't have that street on our outage map for some reason. And our maps are a little bit not up to date, unfortunately. We are going back in our GIS system to make sure that this mistake never happens again. So, it was our fault.
Thank you. I appreciate your attention to the matter.
Absolutely.
Our
Thank
businesses
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now an election update from Dawn Warren, our town clerk.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Dawn Warren. I'm the going to provide you with a brief overview of the recent election law changes. As soon as I can get this up and running. Here we go. All right. On June 22nd, 2022, an election reform law titled the Votes Act was signed into law. Among other things, the Votes Act makes several of the temporary changes from the pandemic permanent. The new law also makes absentee voting process and the early voting by mail process consistent. Some of the highlights I wanted to share with you tonight are that the voter registration deadline is 5 p.m. on the 10th day before any election, and it was moved from the 20th day. That applies to both elections and town meetings. It makes early voting by mail permanent for all presidential primaries, state elections, and municipal elections. It makes early voting by mail consistent with absentee voting, being that family members can apply and return ballots. Changes to deadlines apply for the vote by mail ballots, so you'd have to request one 5 business days prior to election for it to be mailed to you. It allows for mail-in ballots postmarked on or before the biennial state election and received within 3 days of the election to be counted. It requires early voting in person for presidential primaries, and state elections. And it also allows for the advanced removal and advanced deposit of early and absentee ballots. The 150-foot rule prohibiting campaigning and signature gathering around polling places will also be extended to our early voting site as well. And the law regarding assignment of police officers at polling places was amended to require the Select Board to assign police officers to polling places. This will be discussed later in the agenda, and it's already something we've been doing. So I just wanted to go over when we'll be holding in-person early voting. It'll be here at Town Hall. It begins Saturday, August 27th, and we will have early voting from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That deadline is also the last deadline to register to vote, so we thought it would be best for our residents if we were open for early voting throughout that whole period. That does go above and beyond what the law is asking of us to do. So Monday through Thursday will be open for early voting here at Town Hall just during regular business hours. And then on Friday, we'll open for early voting on September 2nd from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the reason we did that was to coincide with the deadline for anyone that might want to absentee by appointment. They could do so up until 5 o'clock. So we thought extending the early voting for that time made sense as well. And that's all I had for you. Very brief. I know the agenda is long. You're welcome.
Any comments?
Any questions?
Could you just clarify the piece about the family being able to,
Sure.
it was just a little confusing to me.
Okay. So if someone wanted to apply for their daughter or son or a family member living in the house, don't have to be related, but they do need to be in the dwelling, they could apply for an absentee ballot for that family member.
Okay.
We would still have to mail it, but it could be returned by that family member as well. In absentee balloting, you would have to, the person who voted that ballot needed to bring it back in. So those became consistent with the early voting by mail.
Because you brought that question up, could you explain about military voting?
Sure. Overseas voting, in military voting, they can vote electronically. Any request that comes in, I'm able to email those ballots, and they can email them back, and I can count those that way. And family members certainly can apply for those in the military.
Oh, by giving you the email addresses or whatever?
The application, they would need to have, the voter needs to still sign for an absentee ballot or the family member. But as long as there's an application, I can provide one, or they can use the mass application that's found on our website.
And then does the voter sign the
So
envelope or just?
So the parent would sign for the person, but the voter themselves would sign their own ballot as it gets returned.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, thank you to you and your office. I know these are pretty big changes, so.
Yeah, we have a lot going on, but
But.
we're up
yeah,
to the
We
challenge.
appreciate your efforts, and
Thank
we
you
know
very
you are.
much. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
Item C, the ADA Self-Evaluation and Transition Plan. We welcome Andrew Shapiro to talk to us about that.
Bring you guys up in a second. For the record, Andrew Shapiro, Director of Community and Economic Development. I do have a image I will cast on the screen if you want to give me a moment to do that.
Looks like it's going to be a rocky road.
Yeah, well,
We can see down here, we're just not looking off into space, so people.
Good, good.
We have a screen right in front of us.
oh, whoops. Here we go. And apologies, I know this is a little, the type print on this is a bit small. I'll zoom in. But just a really brief overview and summary before I introduce our guests. So back in January of 2022, the town received a grant from the Massachusetts Office of Disability to fund an ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. The last time we'd actually had produced such a document was back in 1993, 1994. So it had been some amount of time before we had done that, so it was really high time for an update to those documents. And so in April of 2022, after receiving that grant, we went out to, we issued an RFP to seek a consultant to help develop that transition plan and those documents. And we selected the Northeast Independent Living Center. And with us tonight, we have Grant Murphy and Jim Lyons of the Northeast Independent Living Center to kind of do an overview and a review and a summary of what they found. We completed an evaluation of 21 town facilities, as well as looking at the website for ADA compliance. And we updated our policy procedures and developed a transition plan, which is basically a matrix of strategies with some light cost estimates. And that's actually what you see here on the screen right now for all of those town facilities to tell us what we need to do to update them to make them fully 100% ADA compliant. So with that, I'll introduce both Jim and Grant, who will come up now, and they can answer any questions and maybe give a brief summary of the transition plan.
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm Jim Lyons. I'm from the Northeast Independent Living Program, and I'll let Grant will introduce himself.
Hi, my name's Grant Murphy. I'm the ADA Projects Manager at NALP, and yeah, Jim and I we were excited to complete this project for the town of North Andover. And did you want to sell it?
We basically working with Andrew and working with all of the chiefs and directors, the people who are in charge in town. We went and personally met with everybody, and everybody was extremely cooperative. And we had a complete tour of the facilities where the public is being served and what kind of services are being done there, which are indexed on the transition plan that we put together. And it now meets all of the requirements for Title II, which pertains to municipalities under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And you know, in the interest of brevity, I'll pass the summary to Grant.
All right. So again, we surveyed 21 municipal facilities. For the most part, everyone except for like the two of the older schools, there was like very minimal accessibility issues. Like a common theme through each building would be like raised letter braille signs on doors, or like paddle type handles, or like knurled handles if it's basically a handle that has like some sort of grip on it, keeping like a person who's blind out of like a electrical room or storage janitor closet or something like So most of those were just really minor, cheap fixes. Some of the major, I know when we met with the police department, I know they have that big ramp out front, and they were, we were gonna put that down that needed to be repaired, but they were already mentioning to us that they already had plans to take that ramp down and build a whole new ramp, so we just put that in our report saying that they already had a plan for that. But, so yeah, for the most part, I mean, a lot of the buildings are really new, and the ones that aren't as new, it was still just minor stuff. It was just the two, I believe Kittredge was one of them that we had, it was a bunch of little things in, and I'm trying to think of the other school off the top of my head, but yeah, for the most part, it was just the older buildings.
And I'll just add that, and they referenced it, was Paul Hutchins, our building commissioner, who also happens to be our ADA coordinator, was helpful working with them, as well as Steve Foster, who's our facilities director. And I'll be working closely with both them and town administration on, moving forward on some of the projects. And most of them are smaller scope, smaller dollar, fortunately, issues that we can hopefully clean up and get done in pretty short order. And so I'll work with everybody on getting those projects done. And I mean, I think it just speaks well to how well the town facilities are, how strong they are, how new they are, how updated they are, and how much attention that our town staff in charge of our facilities have been to all those issues. So, and I just want to thank again and Northeast Independent Living for participating in this project, producing this report, and it's going to be a really good guidepost going forward. So I'd entertain any questions for them or me.
Well, I just have a comment for Jim. Now, Jim, how many years were you serving on our board?
It's called the Commission on Abilities Assistance now.
Yes, I know,
but
and I didn't want to say it wrong.
I was with Selectman Stewart, and the other, Selectman Stewart started it with Susan Heller, I believe, and then I was on the commission for 15 years.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. It was, we got to meet here. It was a wonderful experience serving on that commission.
That's why I wanted to ask you, because you have served so many years.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of what you brought is one of the reasons that we're so up to date, and it's just been a passion for you. It's nice to see you here back in a different capacity.
Thank you, Rosemary. We appreciate the opportunity, and I just want to
and
add
your
that,
sidekick
thank
too.
you.
So,
Grant, definitely.
Yeah.
And we want to add that ADA is a fluid, it's a dynamic document, so it's always ongoing. And when the time comes in the near future, this document's available to everyone that wants to look at it. And we accept comments from the public and integrate them as best we can from anybody who wants to comment on the plan there when the board's finished with it. And that's really the way that it works best. We'll be pleased to work with the town certainly going forward. Thank you again.
thank you.
Thank you all. It was really a comprehensive report, and again, I was really excited to see how well we actually are doing and the areas for improvement. So it was a great collaboration. Thank you.
And, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is this something that could potentially be covered with ARPA funds?
Absolutely, yeah, and I think, I had some conversations with the town manager earlier about this, and we had thought that this would be a good opportunity to use ARPA funds on some facilities improvements, absolutely.
Yeah. And I was, again, pleasantly surprised that our buildings are really doing pretty well, considering some of the age of the building. So
Yes.
thank you for your work
Nice
through
job.
the years, too.
Welcome. Hey, wonderful.
So the next steps will just be, we'll do, I'll get together with the facilities director and Paul Hutchins, the building commissioner, and town manager Rodriguez, and we'll discuss, what the priority projects are and, how to knock them out. And then obviously identifying the funding. I think ARPA is just going to be an easy and accessible and appropriate source to get a lot of these projects done.
Should say that having the report done, we're now eligible for the accessibility grants as well.
That's
So
right.
that opens up a whole
That's
other
great.
bucket of money that
Yeah.
we weren't eligible for before.
That's right.
So that's huge.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great.
And for anybody at home who's curious, or if anybody wants to review it, it's, all of these documents can be found under the Documents and Records area of the town's website. under additional documents. And this is called ADA Policies, Procedures, Practices, and the Self-Evaluation and Transition Plan. That's it.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
We are moving on to item D, an update from Jim Stanford about the mattress and textile recycling.
I'll just stand if it's okay. Thank you, Jim Stanford, Public Works Director. I'm here to give a little bit of information on new legislation that went into effect, that's going into effect November 1st of this year. Essentially, mattresses, box springs, and textiles will no longer be allowed within the trash system. They'll have to be recyclable. Essentially, that's a great thing from an environmental standpoint. Just about everything of those products is recyclable. It does present some challenges to the town. Essentially, we do not have facilities to collect mattresses. The state has given some options as far as they've done some bids. There is a local company, UTech, that can and does do mattress recycling. For the most part, they do offer trailers. I think it costs about $17 to recycle a mattress at this point. Trailers would be an added cost, but as I mentioned, we're kind of stuck. We don't really have a secured facility where we could set up a trailer of that size to collect mattresses. I did just learn today that they are offering special pickups to residents. So we could set it up similar to appliance pickups now. But this is probably going to be a dramatic change to the residents, because right now they are allowed to put out one bulky item a week, one mattress, one box springs. I don't think the textiles is an issue, because we do already have boxes at TBI, and there are a number of textile boxes throughout the community. So I think that's a smaller issue than the actual mattresses and box springs. So I think, again, we do have some options as far as, we could do nothing, which probably isn't a recommended option. But I think what we would be recommending is not unlike appliances, where the residents actually pay for directly to remove the mattress. We would set up the contract, or the contractor, not unlike what we do with TBI in appliances, and then the resident themselves will do a call-in. I understand that the town of Andover actually has this already set up with this company, and they're actually going to be moving forward with it, I think, in September, not waiting till November. I wouldn't recommend that at this point. We are going to have to advertise if this is the chosen approach. I do have some concerns that in the long run, this is going to be problematic to the town. First of all, whenever you charge for something, you tend to see them on the side of the road afterwards. In speaking with Andover, they fully expect they're going to have the same problem. I think this is going to be a universal problem. It goes on now. What we see, and this is why I should have mentioned that mattresses are a concern. We actually have a lot of rentals in town, and we, from dealing with the solid waste, we get calls all the time about house cleanups. Tenant left, and they just left everything out on the street. And so, and in speaking to our existing trash hauler and recycling hauler, there are quite a few mattresses. So it's not something where I would recommend that we use town funds to do this. It's more of an individual item. There are other options. You buy a mattress today, generally the companies will haul away for a fee. So you can do that as well. But I think the other concern that I have relative to, what's going to happen with this is that we are going to see them all over. We are going to see them on the street. But nonetheless, it is a good thing, we think, overall. So we are supportive of the idea of moving forward with this. We have no choice. We have to. We're bound by this by November 1st. Essentially, the way the legislation is, you have to recycle, and it includes anything that's transportable too. So it's not like an individual can just go and throw it away somewhere. So essentially, I did check with our other hauling contractors, both TBI and JRM, and I do have some news on that front if I could after this as well. But neither one of them have the facilities or the process right now to be able to handle this. So it's not like we could just transfer to one of our existing contracts. So we are kind of stuck in a lot of ways. TBI is looking at possibly opening up a mattress recycling facility, but that's in the future, and they're looking for community partners, they're looking for grants. So I don't think that's a viable option as of right now. But in the future, it may be something that we could certainly look at. So essentially, that's the program. That's the recommendation that I would have at this point. Certainly offer any or welcome any questions.
What will happen with the mattresses on the side of the road? I mean,
The same thing that happens right now. In fact, I just got last month's bill for our recycling, and we are constantly called to pick up trash on the side of the road. Just so happens last month, we picked up a mattress, and it was $100 to bring it to TBI. That's, in speaking to TBI, we have a number of residents that do that right now. Essentially, they don't want to wait for just one bulky item a week. They just bring it to TBI themselves. And I think with the UTEC contract, that residents will still have that option. If they don't want to pay for the company to come and can take it, they can bring it to the facility themselves once it's set up.
to the UTEC facility?
Yes,
And
there's
that
one.
fee is going to be around $17?
Right now, it's $17.
Okay.
That's what the bid
Oh,
is. I can't say that that's exactly what it is. And I
It's
should
not
have.
$100.
No, and I should have mentioned too, the other big concern that I have is, I do have a concern relative to what happens when all the communities start sending their mattresses there. And that's the other problem with possibly looking at setting up a trailer somewhere if we could find a site. We see it now. Right now, in the trash industry, and anything that involves trucking is being backed up. We're constantly, and I know the residents have seen delays in the trash pickup. What's happening is the processing plants are getting backed up because they don't have enough people to process, and there aren't enough truck drivers, so there are fewer trucks carrying larger loads. It's taking longer to dispose of the trash. And so I am concerned that in the future, we will see these problems whereby all of a sudden the company can't take, or they have to wait. And we saw that when we had the textile company in the past. Everybody knows the pink bags. Set it up. It was a great thing. It's taking waste out of the trash stream, which is an excellent thing. It lowers our cost overall. But eventually, it just didn't become viable for the company to continue any longer. I hope that's not the case here, but I do have that concern.
Come with a plan for all these communities?
Uh,
Because they put this in place, and other than looking at a private company.
It's, again, they give, I think I handed out in the package, they gave you various options, all the various options. They did do, I think they had a bid in place already, and I think there are 5 or 6 contractors throughout the state. You don't have to go with the local one, you can go with others. But it's like anything else, it's really on the towns. We're bound by their regulations.
And textiles just means anything, right? Towels, clothes, anything cannot go in the trash stream.
That's correct.
And how do we police that?
You can't police that, right? I mean,
Policing is always an issue relative to trash and recycling. I think, and again, being in this for over 30 years, I've seen the changes over the years. Residents have seen the changes. I mean, when we introduced single-stream recycling, it was a dramatic change. Did a lot of good things, and then the market fell out for the market for recyclable materials, and it still hasn't recovered. So there are going to be ups and downs. I think, it's an ever-evolving. I can't say what it'll lead to in the future, but again, anything that we can take out of the trash stream, I think in the long run, is a good thing.
it's too bad it didn't align when that pink bag company was around, because we used to use that all the time, you know, and now would be the time that we really need them. And are they totally out of business at this point? Or?
It's funny, because I've had people who will call and say, well, geez, I called the company, they didn't pick up my bag. I've had others who have told me anecdotally that, yeah, they still pick up my bag. I personally have tried to call them several times. I haven't gotten anywhere. I think it was a year and a half ago, Lori, we tried to get a contract.
You never heard back from them?
No, we met with him in here in my office, and COVID, they stopped, and so then they came back in, and it just, we don't know what happened. But I did just go online and try to sign up for a pickup, because it says schedule a free pickup, and it doesn't have anything in our area. So I don't think they have the staff in this area to
That's unfortunate.
pick them up.
The good thing is we have all those bins at all the schools for the
Yeah,
textiles,
definitely.
and that actually gives money back to the schools.
And that's why I think that's a good thing. I really think, that's why I don't think textiles is really going to be the problem. But again, it does go back to policing and enforcement, and I think in the future, we will see more enforcement. One of the big changes when, with the recycling, as you know, we've done pretty well in the past as far as, because of the host agreements with recycling, and I'd say for the solid waste as well with Wheelabrator. That contract is actually up next year, so we're going to have to renegotiate. What we have seen, especially when the value of recyclables went away, all of a sudden, the companies that are taking it are now concerned about the amount of waste material that's in there. Whereas when they were getting top dollar for it, it didn't matter to them. So I do think in the future enforcement will become an issue, but right now it's really on the honor system.
On the fabrics, on the textiles, what happens if you're using, say, rags or something just for painting projects that might have, toxic materials on it, and they're flammable and things like that? What do you do with those?
From what I've read, if it's soiled, it's considered a waste product.
Okay.
And the same is true for mattresses, which is a little disturbing in a lot of ways. It's just, how do you tell, So they do give guidance on this, and I think what'll happen is you'll have a number of different vendors who will come up with different ideas as to what they consider acceptable and what not acceptable. But I would say I don't think we want toxins in our waste stream, so hopefully you hold off on till Household Hazardous Waste Day for those.
Thank you.
So I think we just need to really put out a great information campaign to people too, and providing them with alternatives like the school drop boxes for the textiles and everything, and mattresses, we're gonna have to figure that out. But I think we really need to make sure we get it out there on social media. We get, Sarah working on it to make sure we get the information out there so folks know, November 1st is the cutoff, and we have some alternatives, and then we just need to figure out the rest and make sure we can provide that information out there.
Say that water beds, you give early water beds, so we're gonna have to have a water bed bylaw. Water beds are okay.
So when I hear back from the company and work out the details, I'll probably give you an update and just, as long as there's general agreement that these costs should be really borne by the resident. It is kind of a special issue. It is an item that's, again, I don't want to call it an unfunded mandate because, the Sustainability Committee was on board with it, and it is a good thing overall. So.
I think in October too, you may get a lot of mattresses. You might
And
have
that's
to
the
prepare for that,
concern. We see that a lot of times, like when the colleges move out, there are a lot of rentals in town. In fact, as I drive around and I get called to some of these house cleanouts, I'm really surprised that, whole houses being rented out, and there's really a considerable amount of that in town. And I don't think that you would think that just thinking of our community. Okay,
Thank you for the update.
thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to licensing commission.
Motion to move into licensing?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, in licensing, Do we have someone here? Dick, did you ask for us to? Okay, yeah. Just trying to accommodate somebody who had a tight time schedule. So we'll just follow our agenda here. So the first thing is an update to our licensing regulations. We talked about this in terms of kind of when the year starts and so forth. So maybe if you give us a little more. Don, take us away. There you go.
So back in November of 2021, the board had expressed interest in looking at changing the license fee with regard to people who get a new liquor license after January 1st. So what is proposed before you tonight is a change to that regulation. It says that any licenses issued after July 1 shall be adjusted on a monthly basis for the remainder of the first licensed year. And the second piece to this was something that I spoke with town council about to sort of strengthen our renewal procedures. I felt it was important for us to take a look at those and make those changes before the season comes up upon us again. We had some I would call it resistance to what we were asking for last year in the process, and so I wanted to make that really clear, that if we're asking for something, we expect it to be returned. So, and then the last piece of that was the insurance, so that the onus is on the licensee to make sure they notify us that they have any sort of a lapse in their liquor license, and those were the three things that I spoke with our previous town council about.
Great. No, and those were sort of things that are kind of hanging. We ran into situations where even after our full rewrite, we kind of found these gaps. So it seems like it's tightened up quite a bit.
Good.
Any other kind of questions or follow-up to that? Well, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
All the rest. Okay, next we'll have a, oh, sorry. So I'll have a motion.
I move to approve the revisions to the alcoholic beverages license regulations as presented.
I'll second.
All right. Any other conversation, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Pass 5-0. Okay. In place. All right. Now, public hearing, and this is an application from TCRJR4 LLC, DBA Adamano Social Restaurant and Bar for an all-alcohol license at 1268 Osgood Street.
Yes, thank you.
Please,
Do you want to
introduce
open the
yourself.
public
Thanks
hearing?
very much.
Well, we're having a public hearing, so this would be to speak to it.
Excellent. Well, my name is Jim Rogers and my wife Trish. We
Oh,
have,
we need to have a vote on it, though, right?
Yes, you have to vote.
oh,
Chair, I'll move motion that we open the public hearing.
oh,
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're in public.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
again, my name is Jim Rogers and my wife Trish. We are from Andiamo restaurant. We have a location in Chelmsford and one in Andover. And we are looking here for a new location in North Andover at 1268 Osgood, formerly a Bird & Wolf site. And we're here for a license this evening. So.
Tell us a little bit about what your business is, what you're
Sure.
what you are looking
I've
at
been in the
doing.
restaurant business for 40 years, since, well, which has been a passion of mine as a chef owner. We've started Andiamo in Newburyport 10 years, it'll be 10 years next month, and unfortunately Newburyport didn't make it through the pandemic, but we were lucky enough to, Chelmsford has been in business for 6 years now. We're about to hit 2 years in Andover. Andover's been really, really good to us. As a chef owner, and my wife and I work every day in our business because that's what you do more than ever these days in the restaurant business. We're there every day. Our business is primarily Italian restaurant. We have a great, we make pasta, we make meatballs, we do all of that great stuff. If you're familiar with this location, we're hoping to do if we can do a few more things in this spot. It's a great spot. It has a big footprint. We're hoping to be able to host functions and events there. We're going to have a little fun with the menu. We're going to have a few more things than just Italian. It has a beautiful bar. We have a great cocktail program, and we're really, really, really looking forward to it. So not really looking forward to trying to hire 40 people, but we're looking forward to opening a new restaurant in this town. We think that area over there has a few other great restaurants, and, in the report I think we had 42 restaurants with 18,000 people, and it's known as a restaurant destination in my mind. I think that area over there I hope to only add to that, make it another spot where you can just come, you could have dinner one time, drinks at the other place, or whatever it is. So we love that building, we like the spot, and that's what we're here to do. So, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I've just heard wonderful things about Andover, so.
Yeah, it's-
Your
yeah.
location there, so.
It's been
We're
great.
excited to have you here.
Yeah, we're excited to come. So we'll start with dinner primarily, and hopefully we'll move to lunch at some point, but we need to first work through dinner, do a great Sunday brunch, and then,
Do
but
you have
we-
an anticipated?
People are always looking for a Sunday brunch.
Yeah, we have a great Sunday brunch. We're looking forward to doing that, so yeah, thank you.
Do you have an anticipated opening?
Well, I think from hopefully, if everything works out here, once it goes to the state, they sort of dictate. I've seen the state license take a little while, but we're looking for later in the fall. We still have to do a few things to the building, even though it is a newer building. We have to put our fingerprint on that building. We can't, unfortunately, it didn't work out for the previous people or whatever, but we don't want people to walk in and think it's the same building in a lot of sense. We're going to change a few colors, and green walls might go. I think some things might change. But hopefully later in the fall, you know what I mean? Before the holiday season for sure, so, and as soon as we find 40 people.
This is a good opportunity. This is why we like you to speak. You could talk about what the restaurant's going to be like, the food, the different offerings, and you can even put in a help wanted piece like you've just
Yes,
done.
yes, please, yes. Yeah, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves after this meeting, but definitely need help wanted. That is the key. The people are the key. We can work that way, but we have to have the right staff. So we have great staff in Chelmsford, and our Andover location has been awesome. And so, yeah, that is
Do you have
the
a
key.
specialty dish or a few that you'd like to talk
I
about?
think,
This is your time in the sun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think if you're a fan of bolognese sauce, I would put that bolognese sauce against anyone. The meatballs are amazing. I just ordered a new pasta machine, so we are going to have some steaks there, though. I think a mix for not everyone wants pasta. There's a few different things, but I think our Italian specialties I've been doing for 10 years now are going to be the base of that menu. But we do have a couple of young, eager chefs that want to try some different things, so we're going to be testing some different things and getting the feedback. So,
Very exciting.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a great area over there.
Well, you get some built-in residents
I-
that can walk.
I know, it's amazing.
Right? Yeah. Well, definitely. There's 190 or 200 places right behind it, so that's going to be great.
And
Yeah.
the street's a little busy, but across the street, you've got that whole development there too
Yeah.
as well.
And rumor has it a Starbucks is going to be our neighbor there, and there's that liquor store opens this week, so I think there's more and more activity over there, right? Yeah. So it'll be good.
We're excited to try your homemade pasta, so.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak to this? Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. And shall we have a vote on this?
Mr. Chair, there is a number of conditions that the staff is asking to have placed on. So there are a couple of outstanding items for the building department, a few outstanding items for the fire department, and the health department. So we just ask that the approval is conditioned with those requirements, please.
Yeah, they are listed in the packet right on the first page for those interested, but going through the building, the fire, the health. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
Chair, I would move approval, subject to the conditions that are outlined in the packet. And that's it.
Okay.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. See you there. Thank you.
We also tell everybody we are a college town, just like Andover, so.
Yes.
If your liquor license.
We have to say thank you to Dawn, because we worked with her when we were in Andover, and she was so helpful with this whole process. She's awesome.
Thank you. She is.
I think that what you were trying to say is, we take our liquor
Yes.
license very seriously. It is a college town, it's
Yeah.
a busy road, so
Yep.
we often recommend that you even consider getting one of the machines, because there's a lot of out-of-state licenses, and as I'm sure you know, out-of-state licenses do not provide proof
Yeah.
of age, and if you do that, you do it at your own risk. So we take it very seriously, so this is kind of fair warning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I've used that speech before, so I'm sorry if I cut in on what you were trying to say, but they were getting ready to leave.
Nope, perfect.
Next, we have a public hearing. This is an application from S&P Management LLC, DBA Bueno Bistro, for a transfer and pledge of all alcohol liquor licenses at 2020 Sutton Street. So need a motion for that.
As stated.
All right. All in favor? Okay. To speak to it.
Good evening. My name is Brent Bass. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here before Madam Chairman and the members of the board. I represent S&P Management, LLC. With me are Parasaram Capri, who is one of the members and manager of the LLC. Raksha Singh, Raksha Capri is her married name, and is going to be our manager of record. And Suraj Maharajan is a member and manager of the LLC. He is the chef who is going to be running most of the operations at the location. Before we, as you were saying about the seriousness of your liquor license, wanted to make a procedural note. As part of these, we are bound to do a certificate of compliance, generally, with most towns. And I am unable to bring before the board the green cards. And I'm unaware, and I didn't have a chance to follow up due to my vacation and travel schedule, whether North Andover is a town that does its own independent abutters notices. There's only two in this situation, and one of them actually happens to be the landlord of whom we're working with. So I wanted to bring that before. I don't want to waste the board's time if that procedural defect is going to be something that would require us to come back next month, if you will.
Don?
I don't think we've ever had that question.
No.
So I just need to ask.
Just to let you know, I take it seriously as well, trying
There you
to
go.
make sure I'm not doing anything.
Ask a clarifying question?
Certainly.
Did you receive an abutters notice certified from the assessor's office from the town of North Andover?
I did.
And did you send those?
I believe they went out in my absence. I am, again, unable to confirm for the board, but just because I haven't got the green cards back. So it is a pothole that I can attest to this evening.
Okay.
Again, and that's, with that is wondering if North Andover does its own independent abutters notices.
We do not.
Okay.
My recommendation would be then that we either wait or we do it pending confirmation. So he could give us the green card tomorrow or when it comes, but we don't send out anything on our own.
Okay.
I would think out of sake of efficiency, and they're obviously going to be very busy getting this all up and going, that we should do it pending.
And if I could ask,
The only issue would be that if it is published.
Yeah, and the.
it is published. I took care of the public. I got that part done. I can affirm that under my certificate of
Yeah,
compliance.
so I don't have any concerns then about the public meeting. Yeah, then
And-
we're fine to move
But
forward.
abutters notification, though, may not have occurred, right? We don't know.
Well, and
Well,
I
look
guess.
at our town council is rising.
First-
Welcome him on up. Madam Chair, if you don't mind.
Happy to see.
Good evening, Mark Rich from KP Law, your acting town council. Just figured I would chime in since I'm sitting in the back. I think to the point that was made for efficiency, I think the board can proceed, and then pending receipt of the green cards, you'd be in perfect shape to act. You can continue this matter until your next meeting if you wanted to, but I think pending the receipt would be a more efficient way to conduct the hearing.
Thank you.
And with town council there, could I supplement the question of, and I've had the discussion with the landlord, who is one of the two abutters. Is a waiver of notice applicable as well?
No, the board would ultimately need to see the green cards. I mean, they would need to know that you made actual notice.
Okay.
So, but I think that's something that you could accomplish, even if you haven't actually done it, if you were able to satisfy that requirement, post.
By resending the
Well,
documents?
I mean, so you're suggesting that you believe your office did send?
I believe. I just don't want to.
Obviously, if you didn't, the problem we have is there's a public hearing tonight.
Correct.
And absent that, there would be, the public would not have been notified.
Correct.
So you'll need to demonstrate to the board that you have satisfied that requirement. So the board can proceed tonight, in my opinion, and pending your confirmation. If you're unable to confirm, the process will have to start over.
Okay.
And what is the notice lead time that should have been out? So, I mean, we get the green cards back and they were sent out yesterday. That's not sufficient notice. What is the lead time, or what is the amount of notice that needs to be
Yeah,
sent?
it would be 10 days. You have to have, obviously, sufficient time for people to be aware of it.
Right.
And that's why the 10 days is.
So the green cards should be dated 10 days ago.
Right, right.
10
So obviously, the
business days.
staff would have to verify that proper notice was provided.
Go down and look and see if I can't find them. We can do it some gin, then you can look.
Yeah.
No, and it is a situation where it falls in line with the newspaper publication as well, needing to be 10 days prior to tonight's meeting, which was August 5th. Again, the fact that I was not in my office for a good portion of July, I don't want to sound confident because I don't know. And if I knew, I'd be confident. So what I would, in light of what council was saying, I would ask that the matter be continued in case it is a situation where those green cards can't be obtained. I'd rather proceed under knowledge that the abutters have been notified, rather than go forward here. And then if for some reason there was an error on the processing or delivery of those notices, I could proceed accordingly at the next meeting.
And if I may, in my opinion, obviously, this is the determination of the applicant. So the applicant would prefer to have it continued so they can confirm, and that way they come in without any contingencies. That'll be their call.
The other thing we could do is we could continue the public hearing or recess the public hearing, let Dawn go downstairs, move on to item F, and then we wouldn't have to have this conversation at all, because she'll be able to go downstairs and see if they're down there.
That sounds
All right. So
reasonable.
Dawn, would you mind going downstairs?
Thank
We'll
you, Dawn.
recess this public hearing momentarily,
You are
if
getting
the
a
board so
workout
wishes,
tonight.
and we can go to item F. Just don't leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
So should we motion to recess the hearing, because we can proceed with other things if we recess the hearing, I believe, is that correct, Madam?
The hearing for S&P Management LLC, DBA Buena Bistro.
All public hearings
until
need
a time to be determined in the short future.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, all right, so we'll come back. We'll
This
handle-
evening?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
just
yeah,
wanted to-
come back this evening, we'll just move on to another item.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, members of the board.
All right, so, we'll move on to our next public hearing, which is an application from Kinsman Auto and Sales and Service, LLC, DBA Kinsman Service Station and Auto Sales for a Class 2 motor vehicle license at 145 Andover Bypass. Do I have a motion?
Motion, we open the public hearing for the application of Kinsman Auto Sales and Service LLC, DBA Kinsman Service Station and Auto Sales.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, our motion is open. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jack Kinsman. I've been a small business owner in town for 43 years, and I just had a heart attack 12 months ago, and I've been in and out of the hospital for 12 months. When I got out, I just couldn't do it any longer, so I sold my business to these two gentlemen, and I'm still there. That's my retirement, and the mechanics are still there also. So not too much has changed other than they take the bills and I just sit back. I've had a used car license in town since 1979, and I've never abused it, and these gentlemen will not either. They know the business that I run, and basically we're doing the exact same thing. And we have a big location, Rosemary, you know, down there.
I know where you are, yes. I didn't recognize you at first.
Chris?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
sir.
And we always keep it clean and neat and orderly. We don't never keep junk cars around the lot, so if we could continue on, I don't know if you just transfer it from Kinsman Service to Kinsman Service LLC, because I let them keep the name too, but they did purchase everything.
great.
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, if you'd like to,
Good afternoon.
yes.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Muhammad, and this is my partner, Tamir. We've been in this business almost 12 years now. We have 5 locations in the area, and this is our 6th location. We have in Middleton 2, North Reading 1, this is North Andover. We have in Wakefield and Tewksbury. Thank God we've been doing great. All communities, we've been involved with the community, with everything's good. The business we do, always clean and always good. We're trying to get this license to finish what we start in this location, and hopefully we can get it and we continue what he was doing the last 44 years.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
So you work on all types of vehicles?
We do, yes.
So foreign and domestic vehicles?
Every kind of vehicle,
and
yes.
electric cars, are we doing
Not
that
yet.
yet?
No, electric, no.
We're thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, electric cars, we can, still,
Not
it's
yet.
need time.
Yeah, it's still early
Yeah.
in some ways, yeah.
Is there anyone else to speak to this matter in our public hearing? Okay. With that, I'll hear a motion to close the hearing.
Second? Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Could be the next one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So with that, I'll hear a motion regarding the application.
Approval of the transfer of the license from Kinsman to Kinsman, what, LLC?
Kinsman Auto Sales. Kinsman Auto Sales.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
No, all nice and clean. Well done.
I'll second.
All right, wait a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Jack, congratulations. Welcome,
Thank you so
gentlemen.
much. Thank you, guys. You guys have a great night. Thank
Right
you.
on. Good night now.
Be well. Take care of yourself.
I'm trying, I'm going to rehab, and then I'm going to physical therapy, so I'm working on it.
Good.
Thank you, everybody.
Good
Take
night.
it careful now.
Take care.
Take care, Jack.
You're very welcome.
Good night now. Appears there's still some discussion going on, so we'll just keep moving through to our next public hearing. This is an application from Burton's Grill of North Andover LLC for a change of officers, directors, LLC managers, and change of ownership interest for an annual alcoholic beverage license at 145 Turnpike Street. So,
I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing.
all right, all in favor? Aye. Sir?
Good evening. My name is Attorney John Moradian, Democus Law Offices, and I'm here on behalf of Burton's Grill of North Andover LLC, doing business as Burton's Grill, 145 Turnpike Street. Before you is an application for a change of LLC managers and change of ownership interest. And Burton's Grill LLC is the parent company, and they own and operate 22 restaurants, Burton's Grill and Red Heat Taverns, up and down the East Coast, and there are 11 restaurants in Massachusetts. And there's a equity ownership change at the grandparent level of the corporation. The ABCC has already quasi-approved this through the inverted process. It involves 11 restaurants in Massachusetts. So tonight we're going to public hearings seeking approval from the town. There'll be no change to the operation of the restaurant. You won't notice anything. It's just a equity ownership transfer at the upper tiers of the restaurant. So any questions, I'll have to accept them.
Any other questions from the board? We've had this before with Bertucci's and some others, so. I'll hear a motion to, and there,
See if there's any public comment.
yeah, there, I didn't see any public comment to this? Okay.
No conditions.
No
Mr. Chair.
conditions, yeah, nice and clean, that's good.
I'll move that we close the public hearing.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have our public hearing closed, and we can have a vote on this application now, if we so choose. A motion for that?
I would move approval.
I will second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All
Have a
set.
good night.
Thank you, sir.
North Andover was their first restaurant opening.
Yep.
Yeah.
First one, and we've got 11 or something in the state, up and down the East Coast.
in near Charleston, South Carolina. I got to check that one out.
Thank you now.
Mr. Chair, the application for Bueno Bistro is complete.
Is complete.
It is complete.
Great. So, we can close our hearing on that.
Did we ask if there was any public comments on the, I don't believe we did.
No, do we have any?
We
Well, we
can,
gotta
we
come
can
out of
come back
rec-
from recess.
Yeah, we gotta come back from
and see
recess
if we have any
first.
public
Right,
comments.
right. And then see both.
Chair, I'll move out of recess for
Okay.
the public hearing of Bueno Bistro.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any other public comments or follow-up from the licensees or the applicants on this? Just a point of clarification is what transpired. Well, we're all away.
Transfer does not require a butter mailing, so they are good. They had their advertisement in the newspaper. All is well.
I'm not so old that I don't ask questions and make sure that everything, I
We all
learn
learn
something new
something.
every day still, and
We all do.
it amazes me. So I'm not sure how much information you need. I do have, the license and the applicant is aware that the only remaining condition is with the fire department. They are asking for an inspection of the fire system and for the sprinkler system, as well as an anvil check, which is the hood that goes over the grilling area in the kitchen. Those are underway. Those are certainly going to be done before the closing date and the transfer of the actual property. So contingent on the closing is obviously the inroads we make before the local licensing authority and the ABCC, but we do hope that that will move along quickly as well. Just to let you guys know, just much like Burton's, the transfer will not have a seemingly effect on any member of the public. The restaurant is going to remain the same. The manager, the non-manager record for the liquor license is going to remain the same. The employees that will be there are the same, which we believe is going to be of great value to these new licensees and applicants coming in to be able to have a breadth of knowledge and information so that they can make sure that they're in conformity with all of North Andover's public health and safety regulations, especially post-COVID when those things change quite rapidly. Were there any questions from the members of the board about the application materials that were submitted?
The only thing I'm noticing, it does say there is a condition from the building department and the health department as outstanding items in the building department certificate of inspection and building permit. In the health department, they were outstanding items including plan review guide, for food permit, and dumpster permit.
I think you may be looking at the wrong one. So Bueno Bistro only has fire department
Okay.
left.
All right. Oh, yep, you're right. My apologies.
We have a lot of licensing tonight.
I noticed that on the
It all
agenda.
blends together, yeah.
We just
I
wanna
tried
miss anything.
desperately to make last month's meeting,
Yeah,
and it didn't
no,
happen.
You know, we just don't want to miss anything.
No,
We're
we don't
trying
wanna
to do
miss
this one
it.
shot, you know?
Get in trouble. That's
Yeah,
right.
Okay, good.
Excellent.
Okay, good. All right, I'll get that squared. All in favor? Aye. And I'll hear a motion for the application.
Approve the request of SMP, DBA Bueno Bistro with the condition being met by the fire department for
Right.
outstanding items including testing and inspection of the fire alarm system, sprinkler system, and the exhaust hood system.
Great,
I'll second.
thank you. All in favor? Aye. 5-0. Good to go, get that in.
I'd like to thank the members of the board for their time and assistance this evening on that question. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right.
Congratulations and good luck.
Yeah? All right, we're making our way through it. We have an application from Club 2104 Inc. at 32 Park Street for a change of nonprofit club officers and directors.
Mr. Chair, for the public's edification, that is the VFW.
Anybody to speak to that here?
Fairly routine application is in order.
Yeah, everything's here.
Chair, I will move approval.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Okay, next we have an application from Armenian Javarian. I'm sorry, I apologize for butchering your name. On behalf of St. Gregory's Armenian Church for a one-day wine and malt liquor license for a picnic at 158 Main Street on September 11th, 2022 from noon to 6 p.m. and a request for waiver for the licensing fee. We have anyone here to speak to that?
Mr. Chair, I don't see anyone here. This is an annual event
Right.
held by the church. In the past, you have waived the fee, so they are requesting that again this year. There are no restrictions placed by any of the departments.
Mr. Chair, I would move approval and also including the waiving of the license.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Good. And last, an application from Deborah Ingalls on behalf of Smolak Farms for 2 one-day all-alcohol liquor licenses for weddings on September 1, 2022, and September 10th, 2022, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., and a request for waiver of the police detail. And I don't see Deborah here.
Mr. Chair. Again, these are 2 weddings that were booked prior to Smolak Farms getting their catering license.
Yep.
So there's kind of falling in between that timeline. No restrictions placed by any of the departments.
Right.
Yep.
And Mr. Chair, I would move approval.
I'll second.
With waiving the police?
With waiving,
Okay,
yeah.
just want to make sure we're clear. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 5-0, we're all set. And there, I think we've covered licensing.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we move out of licensing.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Over to you, Madam Chair.
Oh, back to me. We're on to new business, and we need to vote to sign the warrant for the 2022 state primary.
Madam Chair, I move that the select board approve and sign the warrant for the 2022 state primary.
Second?
Great, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. New business item B. We need to vote to require the police chief to assign sufficient number of details for elections, so I'll pass that to you to.
As Dawn mentioned, under the New Votes Act, the board actually is responsible for police details for elections. We're going to ask you to require the chief to put those details forward, as we typically do. He works with Lieutenant Lannon to determine the correct number of details needed for the ballot places.
Madam Town Manager, why the change?
You know, I don't know. I'm assuming something bad happened somewhere. And usually, but does Dawn know? No, that's usually the case. So it is interesting because, you know, you would think that usually you'd have the police chief determining how many details are needed and assigning the officers to the detail. But we're asking you to ask him to do that.
Does he
Yes.
present his plan, or we're just giving him authority?
I mean, in the past, he never has.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes things will change as we come up to election day. You know, if we find out there's going to be higher voter turnout than we thought there was going to be, find out more people have voted in advance than we thought there were going to be. So the plan can change right up to the day of.
And is this on a per-election basis, or is this in perpetuity that we're?
Well, we'll certainly come back to you again. But right now, I think we're just thinking about it for this year. It's a weird change. There's some weird stuff in there. So we're still working through it.
Madam Chair, I will move that the select board require the police chief to assign a sufficient number of details for elections during the 2022 election season.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Great. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Back at the chief. Item C is the request of the North Andover Historical Society to waive the building permit fee. I'll pass it to you.
Yes, at the request of the chair, I did calculate what that fee would be based on the $180,000 construction project. The fee would be $2,160. We do have a minimum $30 fee that we tend to charge. So my recommendation would be perhaps that, you know, we compromise by asking them to pay the $30 minimum fee, which basically is just for administration, right? But the actual fee would be $2,160 based on the $180,000 number, $12 per thousand.
And the project is, I know, an elevator.
This is
For
for
an
the elevator,
right?
yes.
Which is
And we'll be talking about that a little bit more.
Right, exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah. We'll be talking about that more at your next meeting as well. The Disability Commission, or the Ability Commission, does not have a quorum right now, but has made, the chair has written a memo supporting their fully automatic compact elevator, which is exciting. So we'll be bringing that to you at the next meeting.
Madam Chair, I would move approval and reduce the fee to $30. It is, they're very active in the community and very helpful to all different needs that we put before them. So I think it's, and it's just a good thing to be able to have people have full access of the building.
I'll second that.
Great, thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Thanks. Moving on to new business item D, a discussion regarding the school building committee. So we had voted to release the legal opinion regarding the school building committee. So I will pass it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, we excitedly are in the process for the Kittredge School, which means that we have to appoint a school building committee by September 30th. In doing that and reviewing the law, we did find some inconsistencies in how we've been doing it in the past. We asked for a legal opinion from KP Law, which we made public at our last meeting so that we could share it with other stakeholders. And we did invite the attorney from KP Law to be here tonight in case the board had any follow-up questions regarding the opinion. I did transmit a memo to all of you last week, just going over kind of what the eligibility period looks like, the fact that we do need to appoint this committee by September 30th, what that committee would look like, and my recommendation that the chair of the select board meet with the school committee chair as well as the town moderator to review their recommendations to positions, because I understand they've already vetted some potential members, and I think that would be helpful with the very tight time frame that we're working on, and then those final appointments would be brought forward at the September 12th meeting. That would be my recommendation. We would need a secondary school building committee for the middle school, although that could be much less restrictive. We don't have to follow that tight MSBA CMR. But I do have the attorney here if you have any questions for him about the opinion.
I don't have any questions, but I will have to say it was extremely detailed, and I think we all learned a few things. So thank you for it. It was, thank you.
I would just add that for people at home, the requirements by MSBA are very restrictive, and to fill that board, it has to be specific people, like the superintendent, like the principal of the school, the town manager, school committee members, all that sort of stuff. So, there are members of the public, but most people are sort of have to fill a slot.
It's very prescriptive.
It is,
Thank you.
definitely.
That's a good word for it.
In the MSBA, which is the Mass School Building Committee, and sometimes I apologize that I use municipal alphabet sometimes and I forget, and it's
Don't we
my
all, 'cause
fault.
there's
It's
too many
bad.
alphabets.
They do have to approve our committee, so we do have to be very certain that we appoint who they require.
Any questions?
Any other
Certainly
comments?
Important assignment for anybody to take on.
We won't meet the requirements of MSBA because otherwise we lose the funding.
And we got to do it quick.
We have a quick
We don't want to
turnaround.
lose it because we dragged
Right.
our feet.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't.
That would be very
Can't
bad.
lose it. Right.
We
We're
can't.
talking in
That would-
upwards of $50 million. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can't lose it.
Very bad.
I'll allow you to speak.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark DeSalvo, channel, 179 Coventry Lane, North Andover. I'm the elected town moderator. I have to share that I am in disagreement with the judgment that appears the select board are about ready to make. And I disagree with that judgment, and do appreciate that it's being done in good faith in reviewing the opinion and the obligations that the state has newly put upon us. However, it chooses to negate a century, quite near a century, of practice about the manner in which a school building committee has been appointed. Those appointments are 4 appointments from town meeting via the moderator and 3 appointments of the school committee. I understand that the school committee has not objected to this, and they may choose to assign their responsibility to the select board. but I cannot abide the usurpation of the authority of town meeting and the moderator on the basis of what I consider respectfully to be a thin opinion, because it is exactly that, an opinion only around the manner in which we have appointed, wholly negating the tradition of our community, the manner in which we have practiced that for quite near 100 years, that if you go to every single school building in this community, you will see a school building authority or committee made up in the manner in which it has been so traditionally. There are two glaring omissions in council's opinion, in my view. One is that it didn't choose to suggest a clarifying opportunity for the manner in which we appoint, whether wholly different or an affirmation of the manner in which is being suggested this evening. But that affirmation or judgment ought to be made at town meeting, which had authorized a school building committee and a school building committee under both the 1946 and the 1992 acts that has acted in that fashion in good faith throughout the modern history of our community. That's number one. Number two is that council fails to note the actions of town meeting in 2013. And there was a warrant article, Article 8 in 2013, which specifically notes, and I'll read the explanation, voted that a committee of 7 be chosen, 3 of the members to be selected annually by and from the school committee, annually, that the other 4 members to be appointed by the moderator for terms of 3, 4, 5, and 6 years respectively, and upon expiration of the terms of each appointed member, the moderator be authorized to fill the vacancy for 3 years. 2 of your members were here when I came to this microphone in 2013 and asked the select board, Rosemary and Dick, to fix an error of sorts relative to the appointment, the annual appointment of a school building committee, without any suggestion that it was not a permanent committee, notwithstanding the lack of its notice in our charter. That since our charter was approved, there have been a minimum of 5 separate school projects and school building committees that were created. No one has suggested that they are a nullity. I ask that I want to note as well that we had a conversation with the town manager, with the school administration back in May about the appointment of the school building committee. There was not a suggestion that the school building committee should be appointed in some other fashion than the manner at which has, by practice, been appointed for that century, and that we're advised to do so before September 30th. In good faith, I approached and recruited and received the affirmation of 3 individuals, actually 4 individuals, who I then asked, and they concurred, agreed to be members of the committee. 2 of those, all 3 of those 3 citizen members fill multiple qualifications under the new state rules, 2 of whom actually happen to sit on the state designer selection committee, truly qualified individuals, all 3 of which have served on prior school building committees. They are Eva Hammerai, Kathleen Caldwell, and Maureen Sakakini. The 4th member, because a FinCom member is required under the statute, or rather the regulation, or at least suggested under the regulation. It may not be a requirement. Council can correct me whether that's the case or not. But the chair of the FinCom has consented to serve if in fact asked, if I were to ask him for that appointment, and he would fulfill that appointment. Each very ably qualified. And I guess I have to ask, who of us goes to those citizens who have volunteered to serve and tell them that they are unwanted? I suggest to you that there's a need for a little bit more work relative to how this is done, that there is no apparent reason for a change in the manner in which we appoint, that we should go to whether a special town meeting or a regular town meeting, discuss amongst ourselves that which is best for the community, rather than on the basis of opinion have the select board usurp the authority. I can only speak institutionally for town meeting. And I respectfully ask that you reject this notion at this time, particularly in relationship to the fact of the 2013 action that was taken, that in no way suggests that this is anything but a committee of permanence. I'm happy to take any questions or follow up after any commentary.
Thank you for your comments. Turn to the board. Do you have questions for our town council?
Yeah, I guess I do. The 2013 article was not listed in the opinion, so maybe you could give us a thought on that, or a reason why that was not excluded.
Good evening once again. I believe the 2013 article was essentially very similar to what was done previously with respect to the manner of appointment, but did not change the basic notion of what was originally established back in 1946. I think to clarify a few things, I appreciate the moderator's opinion as well on this matter, and I would say you obviously have two very, very different opinions. You've heard a lot about tradition and protocols in our town, and the concern, of course, is that what happened in 1946 in no way related to the current circumstances with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the alphabet soup authority that we have to deal with now. And so it is somewhat different than what was happening in 1946. Laws and regulations evolve over time, and traditions have to sometimes evolve with laws and regulations. My thin 3-page opinion, I think, does go through the authority of the town, the charter and bylaws, the authority of this board, the regulations of the MSBA, and what is allowed by charter. It does not negate the traditions that have been undertaken by our town, and does not negate any actions by prior boards. But certainly the MSBA has specific authority, specific regulations. The MSBA is the one that's offering you the money. We're talking about this one particular project. When the MSBA offers you money, they do essentially put some strings with that money in terms of the form of the warrant article, as an example. We have reviewed, I've reviewed hundreds of the warrant articles, and we've had concerns in the past with the MSBA wording, but that is the wording that we're given, and we don't get to change that. The MSBA dictates the form of contracts, dictates the form of agreements. We don't get to disagree with that. I have in the past, when those documents first came out, I attempted to push some changes to those for the benefit of municipalities throughout the Commonwealth, and essentially MSBA, they chart their own course. They're the ones that are giving you the money. So we have to be very careful in complying with the requirements of the MSBA. And in looking at the circumstances in this case, obviously there is absolutely the ability of this board to listen to the recommendations and suggestions of the moderator, consider those volunteers from our town who wish to work on this committee. There's nothing that's telling you who you have to choose, as long as you meet the requirements of the MSBA and fill the specific slots that are dictated in the regulations. That being said, that doesn't preclude you from including individuals who have traditionally served and who have volunteered to serve. So you have that ability to do that. But right now, we're looking at a very specific circumstance and a specific question that may not have been asked in the past, but has been asked now. And in my opinion, the charter gives the select board the authority to appoint other boards and committees. The MSBA regulations essentially look to the charter and the bylaws of the town. The votes of town meeting with respect to the 1946 committee and subsequent changes in that from 1992 and from 2013 did not take the form of a bylaw. They took the form of specific votes on specific actions. So they are not a bylaw of the town. And to go back to town meeting, certainly consideration could be given. Many towns have permanent school building committees established by bylaw that specify their makeup. This town does not. We do not have that in North Andover. So again, at this point, there's nothing that precludes the board from choosing amongst those who have served, those who are volunteering to serve. But in my opinion, the ability to establish this particular committee for these projects, for this MSBA project and a non-MSBA project, would rest with the select board, in my opinion.
So let me ask you this. This is really important for this town. We don't want to make any mistakes. Would there be any consideration that we would consider what the moderator, the people he is recommending, for at least for this particular committee at this time, so that we can just move forward?
I'm recommending that the chair meet with the moderator to review his recommendations.
Because I think some of the people that he mentioned, I think, are very well qualified. And we just don't want to take a chance of...
And then we would do the appointment at your September 12th meeting.
I don't think there's any argument whatsoever that this board could not consider...
Oh, I didn't get that opinion from anybody.
Yeah,
but,
and I think that's a wise idea, because obviously the moderator has had a hand for quite some time in this process and has chosen very, very eligible individuals who could serve on this committee. The issue is twofold. One, satisfying the traditions of our town, but also looking to the requirements of the MSBA. And your reference to doing this right and making sure that you satisfy all the requirements, again, I can't stress enough, the MSBA writes the rules. The MSBA writes the check. So at the end of the day, you want to satisfy the rules of those who write the check. And that, to my mind, is probably the largest consideration. I shouldn't say largest, because obviously we balance it with the town's traditions, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you are in full compliance with the regulations. There's nothing that prevents you from complying with the regulations while hewing to tradition, while recognizing the interests of the moderator and the school committee, the representatives that the town manager has herself recommended to you. The procedures can go hand in hand. You can accomplish both. But ultimately, again, it's my opinion that this board has the ultimate authority, and the MSBA regulations recognize that in specifically acknowledging the eligible applicant process and the recognition of the appointment of boards and committees pursuant to charter and bylaw. And the charter gives the authority to the select board.
Does that need to be put into a motion, or are we still just leaving this up to discussion of...
We're still having a discussion, yeah. So
No. I mean, that you had said that you were going to meet.
No, I think as long as we understand that that's your sentiment, that the chair would go forward, she'd meet with the moderator as well as the school committee chair, find out who they're recommending, bring them back to you at the September 12th meeting, because we have to have all these appointments done by September 30th, so we don't have a huge amount of time here. So it's great, actually, that they've already vetted people, because it's going to be very helpful in us making decisions on who we're going to put on this committee.
And as the moderator said, some of these people have vetted themselves with experience and knowledge that they've done a very good job.
That's great.
So can I make that a motion at this time, or?
I mean, we can make a motion that the chair meet with the moderator and the school committee to find out their recommendations for the school building committee to be brought back on September 12th. It's fine, there's no reason we can't.
Taking into account, I would say, serious, what's the word I want to use? Very serious opinions coming from the moderator on who he has chosen.
As well as the school committee. Yeah.
As well, no, of course, as well as the school committee.
But ultimately to comply with the regulations of the MSBA.
Oh, absolutely.
end of the
That
day-
goes,
And no
that's number one.
moderator is, his diligence, and I'm sure, respecting his opinions, I'm sure that he has done his due diligence and has met the guidelines of the
No doubt, no
MSBA
doubt.
MSBA requirements, so, yes.
I think the most important thing is that we work together and get the best committee together with everybody.
And get it done.
And get it done, and,
And you have that opportunity now.
right, and follow the guidelines of MSBA and what they're requiring.
And the MSBA will let us know if we don't. Don't worry.
For better or for worse, yes, yes.
No, we don't want though. No, we want to be.
Swift-
We want to get everything right.
Swiftly and pointedly.
Yeah. Yes, that's the plan. Yeah.
Council is correct. Hard to disagree with council relative to the circumstance that he's noting, but it does say, particularly in the regulations, that the appointment shall be made according to the town charter and bylaw, and I believe there's another phrase. Do you have it in front of you, Mark?
I think it's in my opinion itself.
I think it's on that qualifying page, the first one that you have that's covered up, right on the, yeah, right there.
Applicable statutes, local charters, bylaws, and agreements
And
of the town.
agreements of the town. And
But
upon-
again,
and I'm-
the select board would make that agreement.
And I'm relying upon both the practice of the community, that we have an agreement, a bilateral agreement between town meeting, the legislative authority in our community, and the community itself. And it is not for the select board to usurp the authority of town meeting. I would request the following, and I too don't wish, I'm not relying on or standing on ceremony here. I don't want to disrupt moving forward with this in any way, but that perhaps a hybrid circumstance where you have an assignation from the school committee relative to appointment, that you would allow the moderator, or that you should allow the moderator to make appointments, and if you wish to affirm those appointments in order to protect your perceived authority, I have no objection to that whatsoever. That the committee duly sits, and that lastly, and most importantly, that we qualify this at a future town meeting, that there be a real clarification. We have an agreement. There is no question that we have a century of agreement in the manner in which we appoint. There is not a soul in America that will question the authority of the current circumstance in which we appoint the school building committee. But I do appreciate belts and suspenders, and I don't have an objection to dressing this in the manner in which it assures that we have the approval of the Massachusetts School Building Authority, but that you, in good faith, we collectively, in good faith, should go to town meeting and ask them to either, if agreements aren't good enough for town council, to create a bylaw relative to the manner in which we appoint a school building committee going forward. And that may be different, but at this moment in time, I think we can be fully aligned and still respect the agreements that we have, the bilateral agreements that are as recent as 2013 about the appointment of a school building committee.
I think I would be doing that in the motion, saying that you brought forth some names, that that the motion would put that into play.
Can you comment?
Yeah, if I may, just briefly,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no apology. The language that the moderator is relying upon, in all due respect to the moderator, is in a cover letter, but it's not the specific regulations. And again, as I indicated, the regulations are quoted in my letter, which says the school building committee shall be formed in accordance with the provisions of the eligible applicant's local charter and/or bylaws. This concept of agreement, it appears in the cover letter, but that's not actually in the regulations. So I'm quite frankly, uncertain when the moderator talks about a bilateral agreement. I'm not really certain what he's talking about. He is suggesting that you affirm your apparent, or I think he called it apparent authority or whatever, however he referenced it. But again, under the charter and the bylaws of the town, there is no bylaw that creates a school building committee or a permanent school building committee. The charter gives specific authority to the select board. That charter, as approved by the voters of the town, has the backing of the town and the specific reference by the regulations of the MSBA. So again, this is not confirmation or belt and suspenders so much as specifically the regulations look to the charter. But I think the motion that was put forward would satisfy all of these requirements. Ultimately, if it is a determination to seek a bylaw establishing a permanent building committee, that's a topic for a different day. But for today, I think the motion that was put forward resolves this issue very neatly. It addresses both tradition and the regulations without stepping on anyone's toes, in my opinion, but essentially acknowledges the requirements of the MSBA, allows the town to move forward in compliance with those requirements without the risk of falling on the wrong side of those requirements, and thereby allowing you to establish a school building committee that satisfies the MSBA and still adheres to tradition, recognizes those valuable volunteers of our town, and allows you to move forward on this matter, satisfying on all fronts. So I think the motion that was put forward, the procedure recommended by the town manager, is adequate and satisfies specifically the funding authority's requirements, while still allowing you to choose from obviously very qualified individuals.
Excuse me, council asked a question.
I don't think I did.
And the question was he didn't understand what I meant by bilateral. And that bilateral circumstance was the unanimous vote of town meeting in 2013 relative to the permanency of a school building committee. While it may not have been buttoned as much as he would like, and I respect that. Again, I don't want to stand in the way. I will not be offended by the passage of the motion as made, but I felt the obligation to stand up for the institutional responsibility of town meeting and ask you again, and if you choose not to do so tonight, I'll be back at a future meeting, that we actually bring the appointment process of a school building committee to a town meeting in order to establish a permanent bylaw so that town council and I don't disagree in the future. Fair?
Fair.
Thank you very much.
It seems like that we're all pretty much in agreement. We really want to deal with the matter at hand that involves a tremendous amount of money, and it can't be done wrong, and we just need to get it done. So I think we're all in agreement.
Just a point of clarification too, the MSBA process can be different from town-funded.
From the processes for the other buildings.
Yes,
From the process.
that is correct. Your hands are tied by MSBA when they're
MSBA, the
funding.
master
We're
law.
okay with that if we get.
And who's-
We are okay with that.
Right.
So our town manager. Our town.
No, you haven't heard a second.
Okay.
Somebody please second it.
We were all discussing a motion that wasn't seconded, sorry. I'm a stickler for that, yeah.
It was a broad discussion.
There's a lot going on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion to proceed with what you outlined as far as meeting with the people who have already vetted people to move forward? Okay. With the school, is everybody clear?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Okay, get it done.
Woohoo. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, moving on to new business item E. We need to look to vote to sign the purchase and sale agreement for 400 Great Pond Road. So if you could update us on that.
All right, so we do have a agreement for 400 Great Pond Road. It is for $1.8 million. The terms of the purchase agreement are relatively standard. We were planning to close on September 14th, which is super soon and exciting. As you know, the appropriation at town meeting was $1.7 million, so we will be coming forward for $100,000 from opera funding. But we're really excited to be able to move this forward. At your next meeting, we will be asking you to form a committee to begin talking about the future of 400 Great Pond Road.
Any comments?
And so much thanks to Laurie, who's been a rock on this project, so we're very happy.
Yes, I don't think it was an easy thing to move forward, but I'm thrilled that we have. So.
She's done a great job.
Thank you all for your diligence. So I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I will move that the Select Board approve and authorize the town manager to sign the purchase and sales agreement and the closing documents for 400 Great Pond Road as presented.
Second?
Great, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. New business item F, we have a request from AT&T to extend the deadline for small cell wireless application for Elm Street.
We did one of these not that long ago, if I remember correctly. There is they call it a shot clock from the FCC when we get one of these small cell applications. They're looking for a little bit more time. We're agreeing to that because we want these to come forward, and they're working with the Machine Shop Village Neighborhood Conservation District Commission. So it is taking a little bit longer than they anticipated, and so this would be at 70 Elm Street. So they would be with us at the September 30th meeting, I believe. September 30th?
So
Yes.
they want to extend till September 30th.
They want to extend to September 30th.
From August 21st, sorry.
Oh, but we changed the meeting, so we would ask to extend it to October 3rd now instead.
Okay.
And I haven't heard of any particular issues or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
The Select Board approved the request from AT&T to extend the deadline for the small cell wireless application for Elm Street to our October 3rd, 2022 meeting.
I'll second that.
Great, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You know. We could do
It's okay.
4 and. Okay, moving on to item G. This one's fun. We have a request from Nancy Wong of Passenger Productions, Inc. to film on Salem Street and Middleton Road on September 7th and 8th from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. and September 8th and 9th from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m.
So this is a film called Claire that is filming in the Harold Parker State Forest. They're working very closely with DCR as well as the environmental police. The reason that it's coming before you is because they will be traveling on public right-of-ways, and our movie policy requires that you weigh in when they're going to be traveling on right-of-ways. We have reviewed this with the police chief, and he has no concerns regarding the filming of this. They will not be closing any roads at all, and it's all pretty much in the woods, so there's really not any abutters at all.
That's right.
They have paid already the security deposit, and they are working now on getting us the required insurance information. So this application is in order. And we discovered that we actually don't have an application, even though we talk about an application in our policy. So Laurie is working on getting us an actual application right now. So
Okay.
I kept saying, did you fill out the application? And the lady's like, what application? It's always something new, but this is all in order.
That's exciting, something different.
Yeah.
Little things.
Parts
yeah.
of movies, Stevens Estate, all kinds of fun places. that we-
Definitely.
You have another one coming up at your next meeting, too.
So will the notification go out to the families in that area that those roads will be closed?
So I don't believe there's actually, they won't actually be closed at all. It may just be slowed down traffic, but they're actually filming, my understanding is that they're actually filming her driving, so the other cars on the road will just,
Okay. Well, it does say road closures.
Wanting to be like nobody else around, like that she's driving at night by herself or.
yeah, so they said they are doing a notification letter to affected residents, but my understanding was that the only thing they're closing is Harold, you're right, you're closing Harold Parker Road, but there's no residents on Harold Parker Road.
Made me think of Blair Witch Project.
That's exactly.
I don't know anything about the movie.
At night, in the woods, by
Yeah.
yourself.
It's always
I'm gonna
nice to
skip
have
watching this
these
one, too scary for me.
interesting
Yeah.
things going down.
That being said, I will move that the select board approve the request from Nancy Wong of Passenger Productions, Inc. to film on Salem Street, Middleton Road on September 7th and 8th from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. and September 8th and 9th from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item H, we need to accept and sign the receipt, release, refund, and assent agreements from the estate of Donald Andrew for scholarships. So this is really cool, but we deserve some explanation from.
We're so excited. Attorney Reach will appreciate this because this Don Andrews is the Don Andrews who used to work with us in Everett. Isn't that weird? It's very interesting. All roads come around. But so this lovely gentleman has passed away and has created 3 different scholarships for the town of North Andover. We are getting the first portion of that. The first 30% basically is coming in. But he created one $600,000 scholarship under Alice M. Neal, a $200,000 scholarship under Claire T. Torpy, and then another $600,000 scholarship under Charles and Elizabeth Andrew. And I know that Superintendent Gilligan was furiously looking at who all these people were today so that the school committee could recognize them because
Torpy was a teacher.
they were teachers. Yes, I believe they're all teachers based on the
when I
documents.
was at the high school.
Yeah. And so the documents, the will does lay out exactly how each of the scholarships will be awarded. And it's important to note that the awards are based on the interest from the money. So it's money that we'll be able to have for a really long time. So it's really exciting.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We almost kind of fell out of our chairs when we were reviewing all the documents. It's so, it's just so generous. So
That was a question. So there are specific criteria for each.
there is, yes.
And
the-
who evaluates that?
Yeah.
So each one is different, and it's laid out within, like, one is the superintendent and principal, one is guidance, and they're laid out within the actual documents for each one.
Wow. That's amazing.
I would assume all of those people who are outlined would be on board. You know,
I would hope
it's a pretty
so.
awesome
Yes, it's an amazing gift.
opportunity. So
Yeah.
very cool. So I will take a motion if there's no other comments.
I would approval on accepting. You want to do it with me? Were you reading it in front of you?
Oh, do you have it? I have it. I move the select board accept and sign the receipt, refund, and assent agreements from the estate of Donald Andrew for scholarships.
Thanks, Laura.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those are the things we love to do.
It's just so awesome. Miss Torpy was, I believe, the business teacher. I did not have her, but she taught typing and everything. And she was Miss Torpy, and she was just a lovely lady. And I believe it was his aunt or something. And
This
there's
is-
another
it's-
teacher too from there's 2 that were
Family,
teachers.
yeah.
And so,
It's just a very pleasant surprise, right?
It isn't
Unexpected
wonderful?
and
We all know how much
a bright spot.
loves history, so he was
Mhm.
really enjoying himself today, digging into all of it. So
Well, he'll have to report back.
he
to
will.
us.
It was very exciting. So
On his
who
findings.
was looking into it? Who was looking into it?
Superintendent
Superintendent
Gilligan.
Gilligan.
He
Oh,
loves
he
that
does
stuff.
love history.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
he
he was
does.
really into it.
Yeah.
So
Great. Moving on to item I, we need to vote to authorize the use of ARPA funds for 2 different things, a community needs assessment for elder services and also for school security measures. So
notice the Elder Services Director is
I
sitting here because she's so
patiently-
excited about this project that she said, I have to come. So
I'm
the first one would be partnering with UMass and to do an age-friendly North Andover initiative. I did this in Sudbury, and I think, did you do it also when you were in Groton? Yeah, and it's such a great process where they meet with residents and they figure out kind of where our gaps are on being age-friendly to the community. It opens it up for a lot of grants. So it's really an exciting project. We were super excited to see the price, and it's something that we don't want to wait to get moving. So we're really happy and excited to bring this forward. And then the second item, as you know, in the capital improvement plan, we had done a school security audit, and then we had an appropriation to do a portion of it. And this amount would allow us to do the entire report at once, which would be amazing. We'd be able to knock off the entire report, and we're really excited about that. So those are the 2 requests that we have so far. I know I did put in the memo, as you know, we started with a little over $9 million. We have a few initiatives that we funded so far, not many, and we still have $8.6 million remaining. So we're going to be coming forward with several new initiatives. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but Assistant Town Manager Shapiro, who's our opera manager, just put out a new application process, and already, I think he put it out Thursday, and we had 4 applications today. So the department heads are ready to go. But these first 2 were so worthy, we didn't want to wait, so.
Definitely. Can you speak, having the community needs assessment done will open us up for other opportunities, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Kathy, but for me, in Sudbury, when we got the community needs assessment done, we were able to then become an APA age-friendly community, and then we were eligible for all the APA grants, which was amazing.
Okay.
So it really does open a lot of doors, but it also just gives us an idea of where our programming is lacking.
Absolutely.
So going into the new department, going into the new building, these 2 things go hand in hand so well.
I'm pretty sure they'll tell us we need more pickleball courts.
What were the grants? Was it?
Under APA, so I'm under the it's the AARP.
Okay.
So it's
different. Well, I was getting confused because we were talking about ARPA funds.
No, so AARP grants become available.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so it's exciting.
Well, thank you. Ours.
Yes.
I was wondering what that meant.
Yeah, I was like, why are we talking about the same thing? Okay.
Yes, AARP grants.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I told you, it's the Boston accent. It's tough with this.
Yeah, the A's and the R's get
Oh.
And it's also government lingo that takes years to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
We can't spend enough on school security,
That's
as far
right.
as I'm concerned, so.
Agreed. So, no further discussion. I'll take a motion.
Move that the select board authorize the use of ARPA funds in the amount of $35,000 for community needs assessment and $297,196.67 for school security.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you all. Moving forward to item J, the appointments. I will turn to our appointment subcommittee.
So we have 3 new appointments and 1 movement of a person from an associate member to a full member. So we have 3 appointments. Laura Craig Coleman for the Zoning Board of Appeals for an associate member. Laura is an arborist, and she is very familiar with reading plans and understanding construction areas, and with an eye for for the greenery in the area. And then we have Stan Limpert, who is a very frequent flyer here with us, but has an incredible background in history and in the town. He's a member of the Historical Society, so he is familiar with everything that's going on in town, and would make an excellent addition to the Historical Commission. And then Jim Tester, also for the Zoning Board of Appeals, an associate member. It doesn't say that here, but he would be going on as an associate member. Jim is a local contractor in town. He's been a town resident his entire life. He is an outstanding member, will be an outstanding member to be on the board. He understands, obviously, construction and reading plans and understanding what needs to get done. So those 3. And then Luke Michelle will be we're recommending movement from an associate member to a full member. All of these terms will end on June 30th, 2025, except for Luke's, which will end on June 30th, 2023.
Okay,
So that's the
thank you.
recommendation.
I will take a motion.
I will make the motion that the select board appoint each of those as
I would
read.
like them done separately, please.
Okay, sure. Okay, move the select board appoint Laura Craig Coleman to the zoning board as an associate member through June 30th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Move the select board appoint Stan Limpert to the historical commission through June 30th, 2025.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
No, I'd like to speak to this,
Okay.
please. Stan's a great guy. He's worked hard for the community. I do not question that in any way. My concern is for this particular appointment, perhaps there's a different appointment that would, in my opinion, would better suit your talents and skills. My concern is, and you and I, we went back and forth over some equipment that was part of the town's history, fire equipment labeled for the town of North Andover. And you felt very strongly in your capacity at the museum that that equipment be given to the Haverhill Fire Museum. And if I'm saying something wrong, it was back a couple years ago. And there were some, I would say, stakeholders of sorts who really wanted that equipment, which said Town of North Andover. It was, ooh, I thought I was getting buzzed off. That the Mills had purchased to help keep their building safe in a fire, because at the time, the Town of North Andover did not have such equipment. And we asked that you do not give that to another community, that you return it back to North Andover. We had a few different phone discussions, and your response was, I've made up my mind, and it was sent out a couple of days later to the Haverhill Fire Museum. Some of what I'd like to say, interested people and stakeholders did approach the people at the museum, and it did come back to the town of North Andover. I think being in a position of preserving and the town's history and its artifacts on this board, that I think perhaps maybe there's a different position. There's one other thing too that you were in favor of. It didn't come to fruition, but was also to change the zoning in the old Center for Commercial, which also included parts of, oh my gosh, the street behind it, Academy Road. And I just feel as though it's not quite in tune to what I think people in town would want in someone who's supposed to be preserving our historical history. Again, Stan, it's not personal. We haven't always agreed on everything, but I do think you are, you know, have what you feel as though are good intentions for the town. I disagree that this is the perfect fit for you and would like to see you perhaps consider another board, but that's it.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. I'll take a motion. Or do we have a motion? Sorry.
Motion and a second already.
I'll take, okay. So all those in favor? Aye.
Opposed?
All those opposed, sorry.
Aye.
And then I'll make a motion to appoint James Testa to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term through June 30th, 2025.
And I'll second that.
That should be an associate member, correct?
I'm sorry, yes, an associate member, yeah, that should say associate.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much. Moving on.
And then finally, a motion to appoint Luke Michelle to the Council on Aging as a full member through June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Motion and a second, okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you all. And welcome to our new members. Okay, new item K, the process for filling board vacancy. So first, I would like to pass it over to you.
I appreciate the indulgence, Madam Chair. Allow me just a couple minutes here to just say thank you to folks. So North Andover has been our home for 27 years, raising our family. It's truly been an honor to work collaboratively and incrementally to build better town services and to support all of North Andover citizens for the next future of challenges and opportunities. I want to thank you for your trust and encouragement to be your advocate over the past 15 years. As Stan said, serving on the school committee, the finance committee, and now the select board. I've always seen these positions not as an individual effort or as a career, but as part of a relay team. I like to say just doing my part as those have before me, kind of taking that baton, running the course, and then handing it off to the next person. So our progress as a town has also, I think important to note, been the work of the professionals at this town hall and the school departments, and especially I call them the M's, the eminently skilled Jim Marini, Jim Mealy, Andrew Mailer, and Melissa Rodriguez. Each of you have been instrumental in preparing and guiding North Andover to the future, and we really are fortunate as a community. And so over the past 5 years, we've rose above the wake of the past and created the Ann Bradstreet Early Childhood Center, reinvigorating the Stevens Estate, soon the completion of the Senior Center, and finally, hopefully getting rolling with those Fields projects. And yes, we've celebrated 350 years, but I also believe we should be most proud of the character of our community today, one of growing collaboration and inclusion over the past 5 years. And to me, the things that stand out are the rally to support racial equality after George Floyd's murder, our condemning of the violence in Charlottesville, this whole board making a very public and firm statement on that, embracing LGBTQ, making June Pride Month permanent here in North Andover, and how across our entire town folks pitched in, thousands of folks, to help their neighbors after the Columbia gas disaster. And then, most recently, the support of businesses and the care our neighbors have given during this pandemic. And none of this, again, I would say, wouldn't have happened to this degree of success without the fellow board members present and past. And again, the phenomenal town hall staff. And I want a special note of thanks to Lori Burzloff, to Dee Casey, and to Andrew Shapiro, and again, your extraordinary vision, Melissa. So now it's our decision, after the sale of our North Andover home, not to continue a domicile here in North Andover. We've chosen to become full-time residents a little north of here in Agunquit, Maine. You're welcome to visit. And I ask my fellow select board members now to, with very torn emotion, to accept my resignation from this select board at midnight tonight, and to fill that vacancy expediently and capably according to the town charter. And to my fellow board members, as of tonight for a little less than 3 hours, your combined skills and manner and heart have, I think, really boosted North Andover beyond expectations. Rosemary, I thank you for your perspective and your commitment. They've helped shape my convictions. Janice, North Andover is blessed with your committed advocacy for all those in need. You are clear and determined for the right. And Laura, we are fortunate to have your clarity of presence and organizational excellence. Thank God. You keep the process moving. And finally, Dick, you have been the voice and the heart of a caring and just an important conscience to all the actions of this board, a true beacon for North Andover. Let me finish by thanking the extraordinary folks who have supported and guided me over these years. And if you allow me to just name them, because some of these folks, I think, deserve that. Former select board members, Phil DeCollegiero and Regina Keene. Chris Allen, my great friend, campaign manager, coach, and confidant, and her husband Larry, who's the sign king. Stan, you've always been present, always searching for the good and the lasting resolution. Thank you. Thomas and Chris Ringler, my very close friends. Jen Goldman, Bill Callahan, Amy McLeod, Ron and Kathy Fagan, Jen Fresen, Timra Carlson, Mark Rogers, Joe Samuelson, Tim Shearhart, Liz Garon. By the way, a lot of these folks were in that finance committee. That was an amazing group as we kind of found our way out of the desert. And Sasha Weinrich was also part of that group. And then Christina Minicucci and, of course, Mark DeSalvo. And finally, to the hundreds of people who hosted yard signs and who contributed to my campaigns over the year and who entrusted me with their vote and choices. Thank you, and I say to them all, stay engaged, stay involved. And finally, closest to my heart, my thanks for their love and support, my wife Suzanne, Corey, Tyler, and Roland. And so with great thanks and enthusiasm for North Andover, always keep moving forward. So,
Thank you, Chris.
to you.
Thank you. I think before we move forward with the discussion about what's to come, if people would like to take a minute, I personally want to thank you. It's been a pleasure. I am, this is all still relatively new to me, and one of the things that has made it a great experience is having your leadership and an amazing board to work with. So appreciative of your service for the community over so many years in such a wide variety of areas. As we always say, right, the town doesn't go forward without people like you. So I just want to take a minute to say thank you, and I'll open it up to anyone else.
Yeah, Chris, it's with a heavy heart, I have to say, and accept that resignation as you moving forward with your wife and your family. I want to say on to better things, but you can't get better than North Andover. So maybe up north a little bit further, but just thank you for everything. You pushed to renew the town charter, not the town charter. I'm sorry, the town. What am I looking for?
Master plan.
Master plan, thank you. Town master plan, you pushed to get that updated, and it did. You led the way in OPEB, giving us a path to getting some funding in OPEB, and I witnessed for myself at one of the Mass Municipal Society meetings where people were coming to you for advice on what they could do and helping other towns. As we sat through a presentation that didn't quite hit all the marks that your proposal had, so some great leadership from you for the town and over the years, and you've been involved in so many different boards, and just thank you, and good luck up in Algonquin, and maybe I'll see you running around up there sometime again.
Well, I already spoke to Chris before the meeting because we were both outside, but it's sort of like, well, congratulations. It's so bad that you've got to go to Algonquin, So no, congratulations on that, and thank you for all that you've done for the town, and good luck. Have fun.
And I want to agree, it's with heavy heart that you're leaving us early, and you're moving to other things, but your commitment to the schools and to the finances of this town and to the master plan and making sure that it gets implemented really has touched this community and will impact the generations to come. And you really have given so much to this town, and we are so grateful for that. So you will be truly missed, and we will come find you on the beach.
Yeah. Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you. We will be in touch with your parting gift, but there was not quite enough turnaround time. So.
I know what you're doing.
Yes.
Is a gift. It really is. Just having your presence.
Thank you for your service and friendship.
Back for the ribbon cutting of the Fields project.
Yes.
So we'll see him then.
I would say. Okay, so let's move on to having a discussion. I would ask that our town manager outline for us, sort of.
So as you know, and as was attached to the agenda, the staff has laid out 3 potential options that the board could choose from or for discussion as we move forward from the vacancy as of 11:59 p.m. So option number 1 would be for the board to continue to operate with 4 members. They would continue to operate with the 4 members until the next election, which is March 28th of 2023. Dawn, jump in, no, Dawn left. Laurie, jump in if I miss anything. The second item would be for the board to call a special election, and the board can do that under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 41, Section 10. That special election would only fill the vacancy for the remainder of the vacating select board's term, which in this case is March 2023. So basically, an election would be called, and then it would only fill the seat for the very short period of time, and then the seat would again be on the regular election right after in March. We shared in the memo that we do have some concerns regarding logistics, staff, and cost, just because we're in a strange time. We're in the midst of the state and national election, and we'll be continuing those through November. And as you know, with the Votes Act expanding the early voting and the voting by mail, we have a lot of new responsibilities. And so we had requested that if they did want to have a special election, that occur after December 31st, when the vote by mail ballots expire. One of the reasons that we're asking for that is we would have to have 2 separate ballots. It's not possible for us to just add a local election on to the state ballot. In that we already, for the primary, have received 3,611 mail-in ballots. So we know that we'd have to send 2 separate ballots with 2 separate envelopes. And if the envelope came back, if 2 ballots came back in one envelope, we'd actually have to reject them both. We just think that there's so much opportunity for voter confusion that it could end up being a voter suppression issue. And so that's our concern. We have done some of the math on what the timeline would look like. So you have to have at least 64 days. So even if the board did decide that they wanted to call a meeting on election at their next meeting on September 12th, the earliest the election could be is November 15th, based on my math. So it couldn't actually even be on the same day as the national election. If we were running an election according to our normal protocols, which means having it at the exact same timeline as we typically have it for nomination papers, for notice, etc. If you called the election on their September 12th meeting, the earliest the election would be 2/21/22. If you called the election at your October 3rd meeting, it would actually be March 7th. So only a month or even just 2 or 3 weeks before our regular March election. So I'm not really sure that makes sense, but we wanted to lay that out for you so you would understand that as an option. The third option would be for the select board to fill the vacancy until the March annual election. Again, you'd just be filling it for that 6 or 7 month period because it has to go on the regular cycle, which would be Chris's vacancy in March anyway. We did lay out a process for that in case that is a route you wanted to take. We wanted to make sure that it was the most transparent possible. We laid it out from tonight. So what we envisioned, if that was the route the board wanted, was that tonight we'd announce the vacancy as it was on the agenda. We would provide 28 days notice of filling the vacancy. So basically this wouldn't be discussed again until your September 12th meeting when we would actually have, so people would have adequate time to apply. I drafted a potential news item about the vacancy and the appointment process that we'd have out on the Time website, do through town email, and send to our 2 newspapers. I drafted in advance just so you all would have an idea of what it would say, so people would know. The candidates would submit an application. The application would be probably based on our volunteer application that we already have, along with a letter of interest. And those materials would be part of the public packet. I think it's really important for anyone who would be interested in applying to remember that they need to be a registered voter, of course, but, and also that their information is all public. So once you put that letter of interest in and that application in, if we get a public records request for it, it would become a public document. It would be public when we had the materials released for our September 12th meeting. We would set a deadline for the letters of interest to be due on Thursday, September 8th, 2022 at noon. That way we could get them all in the packet. The select boards would vote to fill the vacancy at the select board meeting on September 12th, 2022. I drafted some potential agenda items because under the law, public comment is required for whoever you did choose to appoint. So we wanted to make sure that that was very clear. We wrote that we would work with you individually to each draft 1 interview question, and that 1 interview question would be used during the entire interview process. So if you had 10 people or you had 2 people, you'd ask the person the same question, just like you do when you interview town manager candidates or the fire chief candidates. We laid out that on the Friday prior to the select board meeting, we would inform all of the applicants of the same thing regarding the process. And so we envisioned it being a 2-minute opening statement, that each select board meeting, so all the 5 of you, would have the opportunity to ask the panel of candidates 1 question. we would change the order of the candidates. So for instance, if Joe was first for candidate 1, then Steve would be for question 1, Steve would be first for question 2, and then Mary would be first for question 3, just to make sure that everything is fair. They'd have 2 minutes to answer each question, and they'd have 1 minute for closing statements. We thought about this a lot, and the reason that we thought we'd do it in this manner was that nobody would have the edge of having seen someone else be interviewed. So you make sure that it's really fresh for everyone. And again, we would remind the applicants that there's no confidentiality in the process. I think it's really hard to, I mean, I can tell you from my own process, it's hard to put all your documents out there and know that everything's going to be out there. Just want to remind people of that. After that concluded, the select board would deliberate about the candidates and then bring one proposed candidate forward for public comment. So you'd open your public hearing portion of the meeting. At the close of the public comment period, you take a vote by roll call, because the law requires it by roll call, to determine whether or not you were going to appoint that one person. I wanted to lay this out just to try to make it as easy for you as possible as you're thinking about what your next steps would be.
Okay. I'll open it up for
That's it.
comments.
Do you want me to run those dates one more time? Because I know I said that fast. Okay. So if you called the meeting on September 12th and we did the absolute limited number of days, which is 64, that would take us to November 15th. The election is November 8th. The state election is November 8th. It would be after, based on my math, which we'll check. But if we followed our regular process, and I can pull that up just so I have it. Make sure I...
Send this all out to us too.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. So if we followed our regular process, and let's say we declare the election on 10/3, our nomination papers would be available on 10/10. This is the process we always follow for every municipal election. Our last day to obtain the nomination papers would be 1/13, 51 days. Our last day to submit the nomination papers would be 1/17, 49 days. Our last day to withdraw would be 2/2, 35 days before the election. Our last day to register to vote, because you want to make sure you give people an opportunity to do that, would be 2/25, 10 days before the election. The last day to post the warrant would be 2/28, 7 days before the election, and then election day would be 3/7.
That's close.
It's really close.
That's really
yeah. So I will put this all together so you all have it for your information. We were working on that today, so I apologize for not getting that to you sooner.
And during that time, we would operate as a board of 4.
If you were waiting for, if you decided you were going to call a special election,
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be up to you. If you could appoint someone and have a special election. That you could do a hybrid of these many different items too.
Yeah.
Just choose your own adventure here. Filling the
I love
vacancy.
those words.
Yeah. Town council, did I miss anything?
Town manager and I have discussed this a bit. It is an interesting process, interesting opportunity for the board, because you have this specific provision that allows you to do this appointment. But I agree, you have the ability to do one or more of these choices. Appoint someone in the interim, operate it as a 4-member board, and that happens. Obviously, the risk is if you are a fractured board and you could tie things up because you have an even number, and obviously we like to see uneven numbers to avoid tie votes. But you're talking about a relatively short period, so you could go through the appointment process, which is not an insubstantial process, because you have to have the opportunity for individuals to submit their statements of interest, go through those, have your review process, bring the one candidate forward. Your charter specifically requires that you allow for the public comment. So you're going to go through a substantial process, and then then after that, if you chose, you could still have the special election that would then allow the filling of that vacancy period, but only until the term is over. So in March. So you have opportunities, but you don't have a lot of time, and for better or for worse, there's not a lot of time at issue. So I think you've covered it pretty well.
Thank you.
I think the town manager came up with a pretty extensive process for the appointment, which will be very beneficial as you go through that. But I think you've covered it well.
I mean, I think the timing is hard.
It is.
It's hard to have an election on 3/7 and then have another election on 3/28.
And complicated by the state and federal election. I mean, it's a lot of burden on your town clerk, of course.
And to have one on November 8th and then the 13th, is that what you said?
the
if we were to
earliest it could be
call
would be the 15th,
the
right?
15th, but we would, the general election is November
November 8th.
8th, and then we would,
Right.
if we were to call it as
Yeah,
quickly
if
as
you called it and
possible.
you didn't adhere to the usual timelines, yeah.
If we didn't, right.
Right.
But we have to do it, right.
And the amount of work that goes into
The
preparing for an
election.
one election with the Votes Act now.
Right. And then to have
And
one.
then to have, ask
2
us
weeks
to do,
later.
right, 2 elections, basically preparing for 2 elections at the same time on different days. There's also a concern about staffing.
And regardless, it's up again in March.
It's a very small time that you're actually filling. And yeah, again, you've got tight time, you've got a lot of burdens on staff, you've got a town clerk who's probably already ready to pull hair out because you've got so many new requirements and new regulations, mail-in voting and the federal and state election. And then very soon after, regardless of what you choose to do, whether appointment or election, you're going to have another election in March. So it's the confluence of events, it's a very tight schedule, a lot to be done in a very short period of time.
At a great cost to
At a
the
cost.
community.
Financially
Financial
and
cost, but-
financially, emotionally, psychologically.
I mean, for
Lots of
me,
police
it's the bigger
details.
concern is the voter confusion. That's like
Yeah,
the thing
it's
that, and
concerning.
also, I mean, just, if you look back to a couple of years ago, the voter fatigue we saw when we kept having elections over and over again, we didn't see good turnout because people just were like, oh, I'm done, I don't want to keep voting. And so, you know, I try to encourage us to try to streamline it as much as we can anyway, so.
And I think that's why you have that provision in your charter. There are a number of municipalities have different ways of filling vacancies, and this allows an interim mechanism that is a lot less costly, a lot less burdensome, both on staff, financial, and on the voters themselves, and allows for these short-term. And some municipalities have a different process depending on when the vacancy arrives. If you had a vacancy within 6 months or the first year, you choose one process, and then when it flips to being less than a year or less than 6 months in the interim, then you have a different process, because obviously we'd probably be having a very different discussion if the vacancy occurred with over a year left in the term. That's a substantial amount of time. You have a fairly narrow period of time. And so it is not, it doesn't have the same imperative to push for a special election, at least in the municipalities that I've worked with similar circumstances.
So let me ask our senior member here, because I know you served on a board with only 4 members from 2011 to 2012, right? When Lieutenant Lannon resigned, and then.
I know there was a couple. John Lehman
Yeah,
was
so
another one.
What were your thoughts on a 4-person board?
I think it's something we should strongly consider. I think it keeps it simpler. For most of the time, the vote counts we're about probably 95% in agreement, and even then, when we're in disagreement, the numbers are usually on one side, and then the lower number is on the other side. Like this evening, for example. But I guess I need time to really continue to think about it and have us talk about it. I got to be honest, I am a little disappointed. I understand the timeline, but I think the people's vote is important, and it's really, that's what I would prefer. I just don't know that the timeline's going to work. I prefer people have the right to vote, especially, during these times. I think their vote is really important to them. But if that's the timeline, that's problematic. But.
Best case scenario would be go to a special election and have the time frame, but we don't have to push it out, to get to like December, January, February and have an election and then turn around and have another election, or have an election in November and 2 weeks later have another election. I have
You would
concern.
even have overlap likely in, pulling papers for 2 different local elections at the same time, which seems
Right, if you were pulling paper, if we followed the right timeline, we would be pulling papers for 2 different elections.
2 different local elections at the same time, which, seems.
So if you ran, if it was like March 7th and then March 28th, you'd have
No,
to
that's-
pull papers for both
Yeah.
elections.
People were
Yeah.
pulling papers for that.
Yeah.
We
And-
had 2 sets of ballots coming in at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Which would be.
That's really, I mean,
I tend to believe that's why the appointment process was created,
Exists.
even though it's not stated, because I think ordinarily the preference is to hear from the voters. I mean, it's your highest elected office in the town, our board. But in this case, because you're dealing, it's not only the time between now and the end of the term, but it's the fact that you're not even close to the election yet. So you start the process, and by the time you get to the election, like we're talking about, you get to the next election, it's such a narrow window to have gone through a voter process, whereas the appointment process could be undertaken much more quickly. And I certainly understand the concerns of an appointment process not hearing from the voters, although each of you who is charged with that process has been duly elected by our town. But again, I think the reasoning behind, generally that I've seen, the reasoning behind these appointment procedures is to allow you to fill a brief vacancy as opposed to an extensive vacancy where the voters really should be heard from.
And the process that you've outlined, Melissa, is so extensive of putting in an application, being interviewed, allowing for public comment.
And that the public comment is the opportunity for at least some voter input.
I feel as though we shouldn't necessarily take anything off the table. Like, there's no reason we can't move forward, opening an application process, seeing how that plays out at the same time as we reserve the right to appoint or not appoint, to call a special election or not call a special election, or to operate as a board of 4 or not. I mean, there's no, we can move forward and start the process without committing to any one pathway.
The only issue, of course, is, time does disappear.
Yes.
But, so you could certainly, there's no imperative if you're comfortable continuing with a board of 4. And believe me, I deal with a number of boards where a board of 4 has been a disaster.
Yeah.
And where it's a constant 2-2 split. And luckily, this is not that kind of board. So there are times when I just can't even imagine how they're functioning. But and certainly on smaller boards where it becomes just 2 people. But again, I think that you could certainly continue with a board of 4, but given the time constraints, each of these decisions is impacted by time. And you want to take advantage of the limited time that you have.
Further, yeah.
So is your thought process that you would open, I just want to make sure I understand.
Yep.
Your thought process is that you would open it up, let people put their letters of interest in, see if we even get any. And then
That's debatable.
And then discuss them you invite those people to your next meeting, or?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking? And then you could choose, if you don't want to, if you didn't see anybody that you were interested in, you could just choose not to fill
We
it that
could choose
night?
to continue to operate as a
As a
board of
member.
4.
Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Yeah, you can end that process at any point, yeah?
Is there any further opportunity for public comment?
It's up to the chair.
You can make a quick public comment.
Thank you. It seems to me that if the board appoints, given it will be another month, let's say, or so, you're now appointing somebody for 7 months for an election in March. Now that person has what I would consider an unfair advantage if that person wants to run again. So I think you're skewing the democratic process with an insider's appointment. So I think that ought to be taken into account, that it injects a very questionable element of politics into the process. Second, if the reason that this election, a special election, couldn't be held on election day, the day everybody is going to go to the polls, where usually the turnout in this town is between 4 and 5 times the number of people who vote in municipal elections, is because the Select Board's next scheduled meeting is September 12th, and that puts you 8 days past the deadline to get a special election done on election day. Then change the Select Board's schedule and meet earlier so that you can take back those 8 days and let a special election happen and let the people decide. Or alternatively, simply continue as a 4-person board until sometime in the new year, when elections typically when the electioneering will happen, candidates will come forward and put in their papers, and the process will go ahead. I mean, unless there's something remarkably contentious and significant that will result in a split board between now and March, I don't see any downside to continuing as a 4-person board, and it eliminates any speculation that the board is putting its thumb on the scale for the election. And if it's and it also takes into consideration, and I don't minimize it by any means, what the town manager and the clerk would have to deal with to run, even assuming you could get it done by election day, to run a parallel election in November. So if you want, if that's too much, then just stay as a 4-person board.
So what do we need? We need a motion?
We don't, we just, it's the discussion we need to
Just let me know what you'd like me to
direct
do.
our
Yeah.
town manager to move. I mean, again, in my opinion, we shouldn't close any of the doors, and we should move forward and with the process in the interest of time and make it, and revisit at the next meeting.
Yeah, I don't want to close any doors, and, so, but I think we could operate fine as a 4-person board. I wouldn't be saying this if it was a 2-year vacancy, or if it was even a full-year vacancy, but it's less than, it's a 6 or 7 month vacancy, 8-month vacancy, and I think, we could operate very well as a 4-person board. But I don't want to close the door on, and then as town council said, time is the essence here, that we need to understand how, if we want to move forward with any one of these other processes, we have to take an action on that. But I don't have an issue with operating as a 4-member board, and we're going to do that for some time anyway while we go through these processes. So I don't think that clarifies anything, but it kind of puts my position where I think, given the time frame of the vacancy, that we could operate, and precedence has been set before. We've had 4-person boards in the past. I wasn't part of one of them, but I know they have, and the town continued to move forward and continued to complete its business. So,
Just point of clarification, what is the minimum turnaround, the days required for a special election?
So 64.
64.
If we weren't going to follow our regular schedule, it would be 64.
Minimum 64 days.
Yeah.
It's under state law.
That's Christmas. State law.
And we obviously have a typical pattern that we
Follow.
process that we
Right.
follow in town, which is manageable by our town clerk's office, right? It's set that way because it
So they
is
can-
sustainable for them.
But it's
It-
also
it
an
ba- it-
opportunity for that, for the candidates.
Yes, and for,
To have
right,
time
and for
to
candidates,
campaign
right,
and-
for the
That's another
process,
2 weeks.
yeah.
So the 64 days actually backs you through a number of steps and takes into account, candidates, pulling papers, being able to, appear on the ballot, the town clerk's timing. There are a number of things, getting the ballots out. There are a number of factors that go into the 64 days. So it's well calculated. The town clerk is aware of that. The only thing I would suggest, to the point of whether the board needs to take any action, is if the town manager is to move forward with the application process for an appointment, it would make sense to make a motion on that matter to at least start that motion. It doesn't mean that ultimately you have to conclude, taking into consideration all the good points that were made tonight. the opportunity, start that process, see what interest there is, and then determine whether to move that process forward.
So we can just, for my own clarification, we could say tonight, move forward with the application process, and at our next meeting, finally make a final decision about whether we decide to move forward or not.
We can
Yes.
Or, and just say,
interview, we can
can-
interview and then decide.
You're not foreclosing any options at that point.
We
are
can
you?
say at that point,
You've kind
we've
of
just
opened the door.
decided we want to, because we have to make a decision, right? We have
Right.
to, we can move, we
We
can
can
decide to
interview,
move
But are
as
you
a.
really comfortable let's interview him? Never mind.
Never mind, I know, it feels.
Well, we just had that
I
discussion,
mean,
didn't
right.
we, with the school, with the building committee being saying.
Considerable amount of information about themselves.
Yeah.
And to put a lot of in thought and obviously work into putting together a package, and then we'll say, well, you know.
We've decided not to.
So,
Yeah.
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 It's
I
just
just
it's
don't-
just a timing issue.
Yeah, I just can't imagine that you put somebody through all that work and then we're like, nah, we just couldn't really come up with anybody from apply. That's just not, I couldn't do it. I think it's not nice, but,
I don't think we should close that door, though. That's the struggle, right?
no,
Like,
but you said interview, so I would just say,
So do we,
you could
maybe
see
another
what the
option?
names are.
check that.
We could have September 12th be, September 8th still be the date that all the applications are due and everything.
Yes.
And then we could actually not do the interviews until October 3rd, and that would give you guys some time with all of the packets to look through them, and we could say, you know what, we don't want to do it. We could have we could have some kind of meeting beforehand, before October 3rd. We have one. When is it? September? No, we don't. That's right. I keep forgetting we moved the September meeting to October. So, I mean, we could schedule a meeting, a short meeting, just to review the applications. It would be public. We could decide whether or not we want to do interviews or not. It would elongate the process, but that's okay. It's an important process, so we don't want to.
It
we
is.
don't want to rush.
It's a really important process.
Right.
You don't want to rush, but you want to take advantage.
Right.
of
The time. Right.
You want a little bit of right.
Right, so what we could do is, just looking at my timeline here, we could have applications still be due on September 8th. We would no longer mail anything out to them the Friday before the meeting. They would not be required to come to the September 12th meeting. You guys would have, we would not put them in the September 12th packet. Although if we put them out, they have to become public to everyone.
That's the problem. It's a public process. Yeah, it's a very public process.
So are elections.
Right.
Right.
It's true.
It's true.
It's
It's
true.
true.
Yeah, you put yourself out there.
Yeah, so that's true. Right. I mean, I think if you're putting your name in to fill a vacancy,
Then you
right.
you probably would be,
Right.
if we choose to not fill it, you would likely be willing to run.
And I do warn
Right.
you 20 times that it's a public document.
Yeah, we discussed that quite a bit. Yeah, and it's important to have that information out
Yeah.
there
Right.
so that nobody has an expectation of privacy. You shouldn't, as was just said, you should have that. You're putting yourself out there just as if you were running for election.
So what we could do is we could say that we're going to invite people to interviews on October 3rd, but we could have a special meeting, public meeting, just to vet the applications and determine whether or not we want to move forward with the process before the October 3rd meeting, if you wanted.
I just looked at the calendar, that's all. Rosemary, did you ask for applications the last time, or you just opted to work as a board of four?
I also did it, the way the charter read, we had someone leave the school committee, but the Board of Selectmen got to choose who the new member was, which is sort of unusual. Was it
Lori?
But that was different.
It was
process,
different.
The process we're dealing with right now is specific to.
It's different than that.
Yeah.
And we have worked with four. Honestly, it was almost uneventful. I personally think it could work with this board. My first choice, honestly, would to let the people vote, but if the dates are going to bring us close to it,
Very close.
it just doesn't make sense.
And it's really hard with the general election. I think
But
it's
I also,
undue burden on Dawn
I
and her
also
office.
agree with an upcoming election in March, that it does, if we pick somebody, it does give them, we're putting our finger on the scale, and I really don't want to do that. I really want the election to be the people's choice. So it's awkward. I mean, there's pros and cons to it all. I think we just need to, it's been a long evening, just kind of go over it a little bit.
We
Can,
have to provide
her,
direction.
Can we add it as an agenda item to our goals meeting? Sorry.
it's already
Oh,
posted.
she didn't like
No.
that. Sorry.
It's already posted. No, I'm just thinking it's already posted, yeah.
When is that meeting?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
What was posted for Wednesday?
48
Our
hours.
goals meeting.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're going to be there, right?
We can, I mean, we can move the goals meeting to next week and do both, if you want. Because Laurie can't be there because she's leaving on vacation. Just kidding.
Or you could, I mean, I know you're talking about time, but you could just bring up the discussion again at your next meeting and have the applications and decide to appoint on the 3rd.
Right.
You're moving everything 2 weeks. If you need
Right.
more time to think about which direction you want to go in,
Decide on the 12th.
decide on the 12th if you're going to move forward with applications.
Yeah,
If we
absolutely.
were moving out to the 3rd anyway, it doesn't make a difference.
And just appoint on the 3rd if you decide to go that route.
Just a point, if that's,
Point on the
because
third.
we'll already know.
You'll have
We
media
decide on the
updates.
12th to whether you're going to accept applications and then just appoint on the 3rd.
Okay.
Just
I
bump
see.
it all up.
Yeah, just bump it on a month. If we were going to appoint on the 3rd anyway, it doesn't really make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference.
And that gives you guys a chance to decide if that's the way you want to go.
Right.
And you might hear from your more constituents before your next meeting.
Right, because this is all new.
This is all new,
yeah.
right? Yep.
I think that's our best bet, to listen, to take a minute.
I'll update the memo with updated dates
Okay.
for the 3rd, if we were going to do it on the 3rd, so that you all will have that. Okay? Okay.
Okay.
All right. And I just asked Dawn to make sure my math is correct on the timeline. I know it's correct if we were running it from 10:03. I just asked her to run it for 9:12 to make sure it's right on that. So I will get that to you.
I would do the shortest timeline possible, just to see where that lands.
You want to see the 64 days too?
I would do both.
I think the shortest timeline possible.
Okay.
And see where it lands, if that's the way the board decides to go.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'll send you all those. Oh, she said, so the issue with the September 12th one is everything lands on Christmas, so we just would have to move that all around. So, okay, so I will send you, the exciting thing is that if we did call an election September 12th, the election would be on Valentine's Day. So.
Oh, yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Honey, I gotta go vote.
Yeah.
We'll have dinner next week. You're right.
Voting can be very romantic.
This would be very romantic. So, all right, I will get that all out to you guys. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, so we are moving on to our consent items. We have an affordable unit resale at 200 Chickering Road, Unit 204B. We need to accept the Complete Streets Grant from Mass DOT in the amount of $397,271. And we need to request the request of the police department. We need to acknowledge the request of the police department to surplus their vehicles. So,
I move that the select board accept all consent items.
great, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Right. Okay, moving on to item 8, the approval of minutes. We need to approve our open session minutes of July 18th, 2022.
So moved.
Yes. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on. To old business. I don't see any old business. How about town manager's report, the next item?
I think we covered it. I'm good, but thank you.
Okay, moving on to our selectmen's updates and comments.
Anything else to be said? At least not for me.
Well, I did go, and it was actually really kind of fun. Is the new business that opened up. It was the Isabella Med Spa on Osgood Street, not far from the Mad Maggie's. And the thing that made this so interesting is that the doctor who was opening this up was also opening up, it's a dual purpose. It's a med spa, but it's also a clinic, which I just thought was really, it's a beautiful place. Lovely people. The doctor was there, Dr. Jose Baez. He was terrific, and it was fun. So I was able to go. I know everybody was busy, and I'm like, I'll go. So no, it was a very nice event, and that's it.
Other updates? I want to thank you all for, going through the process tonight, and again, extend our sincerest gratitude and thanks for all of your expertise and service over the years, and you will be missed by all of us. So.
Make it so, all. Leave it there.
Yes. So our next meeting will be Wednesday, August 17th, 2022 at 5 p.m. at the Stevens Estate. I will take a motion for adjournment.
Move that the select board adjourn.
All right. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.